We are live, but
Okay, let's do it live, I guess. Without introduction, actually,
Yes.
before we even introduce,
Yes.
one thing about your podcast is that I noticed that there is, people talk like you guys have a contact, right? But when I look at as an audience,
Yes.
I always, I notice like you're not paying attention to the camera.
So I think on this one, the solution is on this. You'll be talking like about this far from your face.
Yeah.
So like a little bit here.
There we go.
This can move to you, bro.
Oh,
Yeah.
man,
So look, dude, like it can go like.
you are extremely, I'm amazed how professional that looks.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
And those are not cheap.
These are not cheap.
Those are not cheap.
No.
Yeah.
And then last thing is to shut the door. Hey, Baros, my friend, will you shut the door?
Yes, I will, but you won't see that.
Why do you want to shut the door?
Because that Mac is not M1, so it's loud as fuck. On the video,
you can hear it. Oh, okay.
Because dude, that records like I want to say like 150 gigabytes of data.
Yeah.
And then you know the old Macs are like. All right, we won't see it. It's fine.
Take care, bro.
But thank you,
Enjoy.
bro.
No worries.
Yes. And the bitch Mika.
We make sure we treat
All
that.
right.
Cut
Thank
that.
you.
Cut.
And Mene, that is it, bro.
Finally
Okay.
to the pin zone. It feels.
And what Baros just said before we start, we need to give one of these. So this aligns the video and the audio, right? So this will. So when they cut, they can actually know like the peak of the audio matches the clap. So they can.
So it's a signal.
It's a signal
for.
Yes.
For the montage. Wow.
Yes,
I
my
never
friend.
know that.
It is a
Hey,
signal.
now that you're, I guess, a director, almost, I feel like you're. I guess you only had one microphone not a while ago, and now you have like two. I think it's coming along for you. I think what's missing. I guess we could add some background. Like I noticed, like Joe Rogan has this kind of
the
studio.
So I was thinking of getting they make these what's it called? Panels that you put for sound to absorb the sound audio to prevent reverb. And I was thinking about getting those and then carving with a CNC machine the pinzone inside of it, right?
A spoiler alert. I guess.
Spoiler alert, that's what's coming.
Maybe we should cut that one so you surprise the audience next time.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so nice to be here. Support you in this new journey.
Well, thank you.
I think I am definitely sure whatever you put in your mind, you'll succeed. So if it's a gig, I'm more than happy to contribute. But hey, if this thing turns big, which I'm pretty confident it can be, then I have to say I would be like I was one of the first. Right?
You were one of the first, dude.
So yeah, it's quite a compliment for me.
I was thinking this today, which was Asan was the first guest I had. Okay.
Asan, yeah. Hello, Asan.
Yes. Armin was the first guest I introduced improperly.
Oh yeah.
Okay. You're the first guest, my friend, to pop open.
Right now?
Right now, bro.
Hey,
let's do it, bro.
If you do, I was hoping like we have a little bit of delay with that, but
no, bro. Like we gotta get it going.
Yeah, if you wanna have the full truth,
the full truth,
you have to have the Freud, right?
You know what they call this, bro? Is truth serum.
Hey, that's one of our. I know it's your favorite. Oh,
It's
you
one of my
got the
favorites.
10-year-old. I remember you had some problems with 12-year-old, right?
Well, you
want to open it up?
Sure. It was the quarter cask stuff. I tried a quarter
Send
cask.
you to the hospital.
And I had allergic reaction to that. There was something in there. I don't know what that was all about.
I remember you have an allergy in wood. On a certain wood,
Yes.
and then it sent you to hospital.
It did send me to the hospital.
To let the audience know, like basically Andy and me, we were living together, not too far too long ago, but yeah, we're drinking this 12-year-old Lafroig, and I guess Andy had to abort the plan for some time.
It was minor. It was, I just had hives. I broke out in hives, and people were like, hey, you should go to the hospital. And so I
Yeah.
went after waking up still in highs. All right, bro. Cheers.
Cheers.
To Toronto. For
Toronto,
those
yeah,
people
we
who
go.
don't know, Menelaos is moving to Toronto.
Yeah, moving with my family to Toronto. Partner Ronaldine has to go back to work, and the beautiful British Columbia government doesn't accept the same license. So basically, she can do the same work in Toronto, but here she cannot do that.
And that's because she went to school in BC or in
Toronto.
In Toronto.
And then she was classified as a licensed practitioner nurse. But you can fulfill your duties there, but apparently you can do the same job here. Almost like basically like a different country. But the funny thing is that the same exact license can be transposed in other provinces, like for instance, like if we were living in Alberta,
Yes.
it would be completely possible to transpose that license there. But long story. I mean, if you Google just like about the crazy regulations on the healthcare, you will see what I'm talking about.
But this is temporary, meaning after 6 months or a year, she fulfills an obligation, and then she's able to go wherever.
Yeah, basically. So hopefully we will not. I mean, we'll definitely have to suck it up the cold Toronto weather for at least one winter. So wish me luck. I have to get a very good Canada Goose or something to be able to survive. But hey, it is what it is, you know.
Canada Goose to survive in Toronto, bro.
Hey, you need that -40. Have you seen that? Like basically, Canada Goose has multiple like variations depending on the cold.
No. I'm not aware.
If you ever go to a Canada Goose store, they ask you how much minus can you go or you want to go. So they have like -5, 0, which is Vancouver, and then you have like -10 to -30, which is like Toronto, and then you have -30 to -50, which is like Yellowknife or.
So what's the difference? The percentage of alcohol?
Oh, we are the Canada Goose, like the jacket.
Oh, dude.
Man, like, this guy's already drunk. Man, like you're just getting started.
Do you know what I was thinking?
Can you even do the podcast? Like, I feel like this podcast will go very south very soon. You know.
You know, the whole time. You know what I thought it was? I thought I was thinking Grey Goose.
Grey Goose? What is that? It's like
It's a vodka.
It's a vodka. Okay.
Yeah. So the whole time you were like Canada Goose. I was like, oh, like dude, this guy gets to drink to stay
like,
warm,
I
like
will say-
the Russians.
I will say one Greek expression. O πεινασμένος καρβέλια ονειρεύεται. For my fellow Greeks, and you know what it means. But for a translation would be like someone who is very hungry. He's always dreaming for food. And I think you're that, my friend. You're hungry for alcohol.
Cheers on that one.
Yeah, there we go.
Cheers. So I don't. Did we introduce your name, Menelaos Kotsollaris?
Exactly. You almost said it right.
I almost said it
I'm
right.
so proud. You know me.
Kotsollaris?
Yeah, you know me for 4 years, and it's getting closer and closer to
Closer and
the correct
closer.
to the correct variation every time.
So why don't you make it proper then?
Yeah, it's Menelaos Kotsollaris or
Kotsollaris.
Kotsollaris. Yeah.
Laris.
Yeah, Menelaos, the Greek variation, but yeah, pretty much, Menelaos is what most of the people call me, or you call me Mene. Multiple,
There's also one I also like too, my friend.
which is.
Manila.
Why do you stop me like this? Yeah, like originally I was born with that name. Well, I guess you made it a good kind of like side gig to go there.
Yeah.
So originally I was born in Korcha, which is a small, kind of like a second biggest town in Albania. It has a long story of, like basically pretty much a huge diaspora or, a huge Greek population. What we call homogenia, which is basically, Greek descent used to live there, and that place used to be Greek, and then back in the border drawing on European 1920 draw, they draw that border as Albanian. So there is still actually ongoing a lot of, kind of like back and forth between Greece and Albania of whether that place is really Greek or Albanian. But
So 1920 was right after the World War?
The First World
Yeah.
War, I do believe, and I mean, I'm not a historian, but I know that back in the days they used to draw this border, just like they used to draw these borders. They had the map, right, and they just take and just draw a line,
Yes.
basically. So that's why you see a lot of ambiguous places have this crazy separation. Like there is one in Canada even and USA where they have drawn this line, but apparently one place is American. I think it's close to Manitoba. I was reading about that yesterday, and there was like the citizens, in order to get to their place, they have to take the boat and travel across the lake just to get to their place. So really, like they are just in the middle of Canada, surrounded by Canada, but they're U.S. citizens. Do you know that place?
I've seen
Have you
a
seen that?
couple of this on the maps. Yeah, like the that long border. There's all of these weird things where it goes like this and then comes down and it goes up. And then I think I've read that there's a couple places like that where you can be completely isolated. Like here's a group of Americans surrounded by Canadians or vice versa. I think there's a couple of those.
Yeah, I think though it's interesting. I don't think those happen by mistake. Like I think someone is very smart. They cannot be so dumb. Like I think those errors or those like are not so
Dude,
innocent.
Those are on purpose.
Exactly.
Let's be honest.
Like we drew. Yeah, this is our place now, right? And then you have a place in the middle of Canada. I mean, that's strategically very nice to have, and nice to have error.
Oh,
I mean, if I was like, I don't know, if I was into that segment, I definitely would, definitely would like that idea.
Now, what would be interesting is if like that country got invaded. That those little tiny island, like, boom, invaded by Canada. Like, what's the U.S. gonna do there, bro? Like.
Exactly. That's why whoever drew that border is very, very smart. And the same thing happened, in Albania, and we have like this ongoing situation. So yeah, I was born in Albania. When I was 5, we moved with my parents to Greece. So yeah, just a brand new life. And
so what was the reason for moving to Greece?
Well, 1997 used to be like a big uprising in Albania. Ever Hoxha, the dictator, dictator's son was basically out of power. People got guns and basically ran on the street and just basically start killing each other, almost like a civil war.
Okay.
It was very crazy times at that point. I was very young, but I do remember that all the Albanian population basically bounced out from Albania. So a lot of big population went to USA. Others went everywhere, and of course, much big population went to Greece, which is just south, so close to us, right?
And now, what's the status in Albania right now?
Democracy. As far as I know.
Okay.
I mean, I don't follow much because right now I kind of like I definitely identify as Greek.
Oh, for sure you do. Mene is like, I'm a Greek.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of my friends.
You're proudful, which is good.
I definitely I have a lot of friends. I think once you grow with that mentality, it's kind of like basically whatever you're grown as and your mentality, I think that's what you are, you are really like, meaning, okay, if you are from a different place and you move when you're 5 years old in America and you grow up, for 20 years in America, you are an American, right? Like,
for sure.
I think you can definitely say that, and it definitely applies for every country, I think.
I know from
although it's going to be tough for some countries to get citizenship. Like, it's not like America. Like America gives you, if you live like 10 years there lawfully, like you get citizenship, right?
It's complicated in the U.S.
Is it still?
It's very still. It's based on the country that you're from. So they were trying to be democratic. And I forget when this law was passed, but there was some law, and they were trying to give equal opportunity to all the countries to come to the U.S. So what they did is they made rules that were like the size of your country is irrelevant to how many people can immigrate there. It's just based on like numbers. Like, so for instance, they'll say Mexico can have 5,000 immigrants, and China can have 10,000, and India can have 10,000, and it's to try to democratize. But then the problem with that is then you have countries like India, so hard to come to the U.S. because they have over a billion people, and when they want to immigrate, they're competing with millions of people.
Yeah.
But if you come from a small country like Greece to the U.S., it's a much smaller population, and so the numbers might be the same on roughly like both countries might allow X people to come over, but the like I knew people in India who were migrated to the U.S. and they worked there for 10 years, and they were like, I'm still I'm 30,000th on the list of where my name is.
The
I'm just
lottery.
waiting, and you're just waiting.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Greece. I think it's very hard to get citizenship in Greece in general. Well, if you have a good amount of money, maybe, because there is all these laws that okay, like if you buy a land, like let's say with 300K, then instant citizenship, right? But
Really?
but then like if you want to go and invest there, you immediately get that citizenship. But by the way, I know people 20-25 years, they're still not Greek, even though, I mean, they are Greek as it can be, but, they don't have, like, it's very hard to get that citizenship in Greece.
And are you saying culturally it's difficult to become Greek, or are you saying from a
I mean, I definitely don't think...
legal perspective?
Yeah, I don't think culturally is difficult because all you have to do is be raised there. But I do think that, yeah, like if you're from Albania, for instance, and if you're from Albania, and it doesn't matter if you're 20 years there. And I have friends of mine who are not Greek right now, and it's pretty annoying. I mean,
Are legally not Greek or culturally not Greek?
they don't have the citizenship.
Oh, they don't have the citizenship.
They don't have the
Okay.
citizenship.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right?
Okay.
Because I think like my buddy, my friend who's like there for 25 years, loves Greece. Like he's more Greek than anyone, right? So,
Yes.
but unfortunately, like that government is like pretty crazy on that stuff.
So how
Almost like Saudi. I think like
Yeah.
Saudi has the same rule where they never give you citizenship. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how it's almost like by blood. Like almost like, oh, you don't have the Saudi blood, you're not gonna get it. I mean, I don't know if it's Saudi or if it's other countries there, but I know there are certain countries that you really have to be born in the country and you have to have ancestors to be even considered.
So how did you get your Greek citizenship?
Yeah, so back when I told you about that drawing line, so
Yes.
it's kind of like diaspora. So in a way, like there are some loopholes that do suggest that these places have Greek origins, and hence it's so much easier.
I see.
I mean, easier. I mean, it took us like 15 years to get it.
15 years.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. So we went there 5-year-old, and then I got my citizenship when I was 23.
Oh wow! I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was much younger.
Oh man, no, it was a battle. Like, and every time I would go, so in Greece, you have to, go into this, I guess, public sector. But public sector is not like here in Canada. Hello, sir, how are you doing? With a smile. Like that's a different story there. You go there, it's like almost like you're going in a, in a war room, or like, how do I say it best? Like in a courtroom, right? So, and you are your own representative. There is no lawyer to represent you, right?
Okay.
I mean, you can have a lawyer, but that's a hell of expensive, right? So, yeah, you have to go fight and, hopefully make the best out of it. But yeah, it was, definitely a very interesting part of how we got it, I guess.
Did you did that affect how you grew up at all? Like your relationships with people, or not being Greek, or like the school system, or like how was growing up as an Albanian in Greece?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can ask I guess a black person how it is to grow as a black person in America, right? I think there is a lot of similarities, even though different challenges and different backgrounds. But generally speaking, when you are part of a minority, is always challenging. But on the other hand, it sets you for the best. Like basically, if you can survive and if you know how to tackle some of the common, I guess almost like bullying against you, then you grow much better. So meaning if it doesn't phase you, you develop a character, right? And many people I think would agree with that. So yeah, it was interesting. You learn how to defend yourself. As you said, Minella is a tough name to grow with, so another challenger. But found my ways around, and I think that made me who I am. So I'm definitely very happy that this happened. Even though it was very challenging, and sometimes you're like, well, like let's say if I was a Greek, I would have it easier. But then if I had it easier, would that be good? You know what I mean? Because then you get more comfortable. You're kind of like easier on yourself. You don't have so many. You don't have to hustle.
Do you think you would still be in Greece today if you were born in Greece?
That's a big if, right? I think definitely Albanians have this drive to go places, like just hustle, hard work, very hard work. I definitely took it from there. I'm pretty sure. Most of my friends are in Greece, happy, and they are living very good lives. And like I think part of it is because sometimes you get comfortable with your environment, and I don't necessarily want to over challenge yourself.
For
right?
sure.
I mean, it's a challenge if you go to a different country, right? Like if you leave everything behind, your parents, your friends, it because you came in Canada.
Yes.
So every immigrant knows how tricky it can become, especially if you're coming on your own.
Yes, it can be very tricky. I agree 100%. And as a child growing up and having haven't made that decision, right? Like for as an adult, when you're an immigrant, it's a little different than I would imagine if you're 5 or 10, like it's a different experience. You didn't make that choice.
Yeah. I mean, early on, you say?
Yeah, early on.
Yeah. I mean, early on, I think you didn't have the choice. Like early on, it's much easier, right? Because you're following your parents. But, the second migration to Canada, I think that was like a choice of mine, right?
Oh, for sure.
That was like basically, okay, now I'm just going there,
And what was the reason for your choice?
I'm gonna sip the water. The reason was very simple. In 2015, there was this big uprising. I don't know if you remember that, but economic crisis in Greece.
Yes, the was that the first or second time that you went bankrupt?
Well, technically, we never went bankrupt.
Okay.
Even though we should have.
Okay.
But
educate me here.
Well, Germans basically offered us help to bail us out of the economic situation, right? And that's why Greece is under the European Union, because we have a lot of help from the Germans. Now, that help is not free, like you pay interest on help, just like as you pay interest on any loan that you get, right? So the bank helps you, but really helps themselves. The same situation applies for Greece, I think. And yeah, basically, Greece 2015, one day the bank say you cannot withdraw your money. You can withdraw up to $50 a day.
$50 a day.
$50 a day. Yes.
So what happens if you make rent or like large,
So many people in Greece own their houses.
Okay.
So it's a different society. It's not depending on this financial system like we have here. So basically, in Canada, I think you have a lot of renters, but you have a lot of homeowners who are not really homeowners like myself. They are
They're borrowing from the bank.
The bank, yes. So in this system, I think if you couldn't really apply what they did in Greece.
I see.
But in Greece, you can totally do that. And because many people don't really need to pay rent, right? And of course, you could have like exclusion mechanisms. Now, one thing we owned our house, so I don't know what was the law at that time. But if you had a rent, I'm pretty sure you could, get a justification and then get the money out. But you couldn't withdraw for any other reason and you basically you couldn't use your credit card. So credit card was disabled.
Really?
Yes. So basically, and I think a lot of Greek people actually are very well prepared for that. There is a lot of cash in Greece. There is a lot of people who don't trust banks, and I guess they were right.
And they have the money underneath the mattress kind of thing.
Basically.
I see.
A lot of people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's different, right? Like I guess here cash is considered kind of like, oh, if you have cash, you're a fool, because why don't you invest that? But in Greece, it's like, keep your cash because the doomsday is coming. And they were right, like once the doomsday is coming, I mean, you have to be well prepared for that. It comes only once, but it comes every 100 years, I would say.
And I would imagine part of that thinking is your history, that in Greece that you had many situations that caused that mentality.
Yeah, definitely. We have like wars. We had like all of this, I guess 18, we were 400 years of fights with the Turks, right? And then we were fighting with everyone in the Balkans, including Albania. So basically, in Balkans, everyone fights, like everyone, right? I mean, you remember like with Fyrom, even because of the name Macedonia, or we had another fight. I mean, that was more of a political fight, but definitely a very interesting part of the world, and a lot of kind of like neighbors hating each other.
Okay.
Not really hating, but definitely constant back and forth.
Okay. So tell me, what were some things that you miss about Greece? Like you migrated. Like what are the things that are like hard for you that would like draw you back?
Man, the sea, that sea and the sun, it is they're fantastic. Like it's so chill to just go, and you can do it in any random day. You can go in the beach and just chill under the sun and just swim, and you are swimming in the Mediterranean Sea. You could drink your ouzo or your coffee, and you just relax after work or whatever, right? I think that is a very high value for me to go back at some point, because from my family as well, right? Like I'm pretty sure my son has not been there yet, but I'm pretty sure he will love it.
So it's different than the beach here in Vancouver.
You know what? It's funny because I went to this kebab place. We got this to eat, and someone was telling me the same. I'm from Egypt, and it's like, oh, the beaches in Egypt are so much better. I'm like, what are you comparing about? Like, this is uncomparable, right? It's like, yeah, of course, it's a different, way better. I can't even compare the Pacific with the Mediterranean. I mean, that's unfair.
Okay.
It's unfair.
It's unfair.
Let's not do that.
You're a little prejudiced against the Mediterranean Sea, let's say.
Well, let me put it this way. Like, how many people are coming here to go to the beach?
Very true. Very true.
And you go to Tofino, which is actually pretty beautiful on images, but when you swim it, it's like, like you can't swim. The water is so cold, and it's very good for surfing, but it's like, nah. It's like Mediterranean Sea so far is the best. I mean, I know there is some other Caribbean I've never been, or Hawaiian. Like, I'm pretty sure.
You have to go to Hawaii.
Yeah,
Hawaii is beautiful. Like
we almost went this summer with my parents and my partner and my son, but unfortunately, we actually switched our plans to go to Kelowna because we didn't have the Canadian passports as yet. So we had to play safe. But yeah, one day.
Do you remember, like, this was the first year I came to Canada, so like 2020. This was before Magnus was born, and completely different Mene. And I remember, like, you're like, hey, bro.
2020? No, you come 2019, I think.
No, I came 2020.
Really?
I came January 2020.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that
like,
is wild.
Right before COVID, bro. Right
you
before
timed it
COVID.
well. You timed it.
I timed it excellent. So
what would you have done if that you didn't make that move, eh? Like, do you think about that? Like, if you stayed in Ohio, because I think at that point you would be locked in Ohio for at least 2 years.
So this is where my knowledge doesn't do me as well, because I didn't live there, right? Like, I only heard from like my mom and stuff, but the first 6 months were a lot more locked down.
Oh, really?
But then it kind of loosened up. Maybe not quite as free as soon. Like, because if you remember in Vancouver, we locked down for like a month, right? When we first happened, and then within a month we kind of opened up, and you're allowed to go in restaurants without a mask and all that kind of stuff. in Ohio, it was later before that activity kind of started. And then towards the end, but they never did the vaccine passports. They never did like that bullshit where I got to show this picture on my phone to say I'm vaccinated to go get a burrito.
I think at some point people will laugh very hard at this, but once we are older, we'll tell them that this actually happened, and they will look at us and like, no way.
Well,
it actually happened, and it was like quite big.
Yeah. It was huge. Like you think huge, most people, their life, like when I listen to a lot of people, they say their life stopped, during COVID. Mine was the opposite. I do
remember that.
Yeah. You remember that? Yeah. Because like you move to a new city and I'm like, I'm not going to stay doing nothing all the time.
Yeah, totally.
So me and you hung out all the time, and I met more people probably in my life in such a short time just because I'm in a new area and I'm forced to meet new people. And I, like me and you, did every single thing we possibly could to enjoy ourselves, right? Like we were like, oh, we can only go to coffee shops. Okay, then we're staying out to the coffee shop till midnight.
That break was excellent. Every time I go from there, like they were the only coffee shop in the town that was open.
I know, dude.
And that was like, it was such a banger. Like everyone was going there. And it was great,
We knew people by names,
Everyone knew us. Like we walked the street, like
Well,
stay away from them,
It's not hard when you're like at Brecca till 1, 2 a.m. Every day.
We did fast it that way.
We did fast it that way.
It didn't go well, but hey, it doesn't matter. It was an experience.
We learned a lot from that startup, Like I would do things very different, but like would I have done them differently without going through the experience? This is what I don't know.
I think I was talking to my colleague today, and we had this project, and this project is ongoing for 22 months, right? And we were talking about like, if we started today, what kind of steps would you take to do it differently? And of course, there is a lot of variations you can go, but one thing you might not analyze correctly is like what things could go wrong in the new variation.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So if you take that other road, is it actually going to save you? Like some people say, that road is much better, but is it really if you take that, right? Only then Like I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of unforeseen circumstances. So yeah, I mean, the same thing applies for business. I think like you can always come to a conclusion like, we did this mistake, that mistake, or 50 other mistakes. But I guess in the end of the day, you're never guaranteed on an outcome unless you take the action, right? So we took the action, and of course, I mean, I think one thing I got personally is like, definitely like everything depends on the customer, right? Like everything depends on the customer need. So that was my core learning, but even that learning can be questioned, because I know a lot of startups right now don't need any customer to raise any money, right? Like Arman.
Yes.
I mean, Arman has a lot of customers, but like...
Yeah.
You don't need customers to raise that.
Oh, for sure. My perspective on this, and I think it's the same in life as well. That is, you have to just keep pushing and changing what you're doing until something works out. Right. So like when you're in your job as a developer, right, like you're trying to tackle a problem, whatever that problem is, and you try, version 1 and it doesn't work, or it's halfway there. And then you go to version 2, and then you just keep doing the different versions until you get a really elegant solution. And I think life and business, it's kind of that way, like you just got to keep pushing and pivoting. And, you want definitely a vision of where you're going.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes vision is, I guess, it's almost like poor marketing, right? Like I've seen many visions who are just there, but then in reality, the implementation is different, right? And that's fine. But I would say like back to your question, like, you can always claim that you have these learnings and, oh my God, I would do these things so different. But will you really do the different, right? Like, I mean, sometimes it's just, it's just like you commit on something that is a wrong bet, and you do that, and that was a mistake. Yes. But if you have taken a different variation, you can still fail even on that variation, right?
Well, here's what I will say is I don't view facet as a mistake. Like, I view it as like I was so glad that I personally did it. It's what I needed in my life. I know you are in a very different,
Yeah.
so just for people, to realize, like Mene, like we started facet, and then
My baby was born.
your baby was born within like what, like six months of the first code that we wrote on that.
Yeah.
And that changed everything.
Yeah, I think well, we had seen coming, like kind of like, I know Andy was always telling me, "Oh my God, the baby is born. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to drop out from your job?" I'm like, man, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Like, yeah. And actually, we were very nice. Like, I remember I told you, it was actually, we were doing very cool stuff. Like we were building a lot of interesting problems, and the company actually is doing very well right now. So, I would say, yeah, like we took a big risk, I think, when I look back, but it was a good option. Like we learned a lot.
We
right?
learned, and I had fun.
I don't think
had
I don't
fun.
think you learn this kind of stuff in an MBA. Like
No.
people who take MBAs and don't try their business, I don't like that was so much more valuable. And that was what Amar told me, even like, you know what, you could have paid like 100K on an MBA, but instead you took that plunge, right? So yeah, that's very true.
And like I said, like I had fun, and the learning, like you were saying, is astronomical, right? Like,
I don't know if fun is a way to put it. We definitely have fun, but I do remember some days that I was so much stressed. Like I was going to bed at night, and I was actually like just like thinking all the time, kind of like a rookie stress. You know what I mean? Like rookie founder stress.
I think
I'm
this
pretty
is
sure
the difference between me and you here is and which is the situation that we are in.
Yeah.
Me, I didn't have a kid on the way. I had very, very low rent in Vancouver. Like what? Like I think we were paying, like I was paying 1,500 or something like this.
Yeah.
And I was working out the next stages in my life. So I didn't have that stress of, oh crap, I have a baby now and I have to pay bills, and I want to make sure that Magnus has a good life and has opportunities and it is a stable. I didn't have any of that, but I recognized that on you, and I saw how much stress, that
I had,
yeah.
Definitely. I was definitely very stressed. I mean, if I didn't have that stress, would that be successful? I don't know. I don't think so. Because the problem was not the stress. The problem was not the.
It was the
It was not even. It was just like, I guess it was. Yeah, maybe the idea wasn't that good, to be honest. So, yeah, I think, But regardless, that was like a very, very good experience. Like I'm actually excited to try it again. Like try it again, different circumstances. Different.
Oh, for sure.
Different parameters, but try it again, especially after seeing Arman and being so successful. Even my other colleague Marat is doing very well as well in his Safe Digit startup. So yeah, I mean, it's great to see that. It's just inspiring, and I think one day I would definitely want to try this again.
Oh yeah, like me, I kind of trying it, but I don't want to do software again. Like, and the last,
it's a pity because you're so smart. Like some people, I always say that to people, like kind of like, oh, Andy is just going part time, and I always tell them like, man, Andy is such a smart guy. Many people might think like, oh, you're just lazy, or oh, you don't like tech. I actually think you are very good at tech. Like I remember like you being like one of the best DevOps engineer I've ever seen. So I think you're kind of like saying, okay, I'm not interested in doing the same job for 10 years.
Yeah,
because it's not challenging,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
And yeah, I mean, it comes a time where that happens. I definitely can see that, when you do the same thing and you're like, I've done this before. It's not a challenge, but
my dad was like this. I remember at one point he got a new job, like a good job, and then it was like some VP job somewhere at a company, and then
Fred, your dad.
Fred, yeah, actually, so this was true. His name's not Fred.
No way.
It's Freddie.
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 Like Freddy Krueger or something?
Freddy, bro. Freddie. Freddie Pinson. So
Oh, damn.
so that comes from Appalachia, right? So my parents are
From where?
Appalachia. So do you know the Appalachian Mountains?
I have heard of it, but I don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
exactly that is.
So it's like Kentucky,
Kentucky.
West Virginia, okay,
In this
Tennessee.
in this very diverse place.
Di-
Diversity places.
diversity may not be the strong
Kentucky.
suit there.
In Kentucky, yeah, for sure.
But in that area, we call that Appalachia,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my dad was an Appalachian, and in that culture,
you know what? Actually, I've seen a movie. It's called Appalachian Mountains.
yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't. No, but
Man,
that's
you should see that movie. It's kind of like people who live on their own, excluded from other communities,
Mm-hmm.
and they survive on their own, and they do some crazy stuff.
yeah, dude.
I think it's called Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, so like this is the area that my dad grew up in.
That's
dude.
a rough area. I mean, if that movie was based on true circumstances.
Oh, dude, it's true.
But
yeah.
they were like extremely, how do you say this? Like very on their own, and you could live on a mountain, and
Yes.
you could do a fully functional society without interacting with the external civilization.
Yes. So my dad grew up on the side of a mountain. Like no joke. It's it was a place called I'm trying to think, Pikeville, Kentucky. So Pikeville is the name of the county. It's the largest county in Kentucky, but it's also the poorest county in Kentucky. And he grew up on this mountain, and the actual road was called Rock House Road, like the Rock House, you know. And
Why do they call it a rock house?
because I believe, and this is where like I haven't been there, but I believe it's because there used to be this big house that was made out of rocks, and so like this road was like the road to the Rock House.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So there was this little area up. So my dad's family owns like 40 acres of land in this area, and so he grew up in this area. I'll give you one story that will
Shake at me.
perhaps give a little color to the lifestyle that they had. So
Tell me that.
my great grandmother Tranny, okay, Tranny.
That's another.
So my grandma was giving birth to one of her children. She had many, right?
She had 9, right?
No, so that's my grandma on my mom's side, but
Okay.
we're talking about my great grandma on my dad's side
In the Appalachian Mountains.
in the Appalachian area. So my mom's family is from Columbus, Ohio, right? My dad's family is from Appalachia, so very different culturally groups.
Actually,
right?
it's funny. Apologia is another place in Greece.
Okay.
So I wonder if that name is
Apologia.
Apologia, Apologia. It's like almost
Maybe,
like the same.
maybe.
I actually want to
Yeah.
check it out now.
Oh yeah,
It sounds
check
hell
it
of
out.
Greek. It
Yeah,
sounds hell of Greek.
it might be.
I don't know if it's Greek, but you know, if you go to Greece, everything is Greek. They say the beds are made of Greeks, the windows, everything. Like okay is like ola kala.
Yes.
They say like it's originating in a joking.
All
like,
I know
yeah.
is you guys stole all of the Roman mythology, right? Like
Yeah, it's maybe the opposite. Yes.
maybe the opposite. I don't know. So anyway, back to grandma. So she was giving birth one day, and the baby was born stillborn, right? So dead, right? So the baby died. Now here's the terrible part.
Wow.
Is the baby actually grew into part of the uterus, right? So like the fetus merged with the body, right? So my grandma is in Appalachia, you know, like 60, 70 years ago, having a kid, and the baby won't come out. So the what's it called? Not the doctor, but the midwife, because they use midwives. The midwife dug the baby out with a spoon.
Yeah, definitely Appalachian. Yeah,
Dude, that's
crazy.
that's Appalachian shit, you know.
Man, like I think people nowadays are too soft for this. Like, nobody in this Vancouver area, at least, like there will be no chance that someone does something crazy like this. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I don't have the guts to do.
No,
something.
well, like I think you lie on that because you would do it. Like if
Well,
you were,
I mean, if circumstances.
yeah, if the circumstance, like,
because you have to save a life at some point, right?
yeah, but like in Vancouver, would you do that in today's climate? No. But if I put you on an island in the middle of nowhere,
I would do it.
you
Yeah.
did you ever see the movie with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, the survive.
Castaway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with that ball.
Yeah, with the Wilson ball.
Yeah, the Wilson. Yeah.
Do you remember the scene with the tooth in the ice skate in the rock?
Well, he kind of like was.
Yeah. You know, like you would do that shit. You would do this shit if you had to.
I think so. Yeah, everyone would, right? Like, of course, that's a 0 to none option out there. So
Yes.
you would do whatever you have to do to survive at that point. So yeah, I guess people in that age, they were doing this kind of stuff to survive. It was normal.
It was normal. Yeah, like it was just part of life.
I mean, people back in the days, yeah, they were giving birth in home, right? You didn't go to the hospital. So really, the grandma, was giving birth to the kid, right? So, I mean, helping out with the birth. So yeah, I could believe that's the case.
Yeah, that's a true story. So my my great grandma told that to my mom, and my mom was like shocked. Like
Well, she like your mom is also very hands on. I would say. Like,
well, she's
not like a city girl, right?
no,
Or is she?
my mom's definitely not a city girl for sure. Her mother grew up on a farm, so my grandma she grew up on a farm in Ohio, close to Columbus. I don't want to say that. I don't know where, but I think she grew up on a farm in Columbus, right? So like,
Don't worry, she will correct you.
yeah,
when
yeah.
she sees this.
So
Shout out to
hey, Grandma.
Miss
Yes,
Barbara.
yes. Hello,
Your grandma is still. Oh, your grandma is still.
dude.
Alive, right?
My grandma, I think 96 now.
Damn.
I mean, I hope I have these genes, you know.
You wish. You only wish.
And here's another name for you. Are you ready?
Tell me.
Flo, Grandma Flo. That's her
Flo?
first name. FLO, Flo, like Florence. Flo.
That's a great name.
And so my mother's maiden name is Ferris,
Ferris. Okay.
like the Ferris
Tim
wheel.
Ferris. I've seen that like Ferris. There is a very known kind of like podcast / author, Tim Ferris. Double
I
S,
haven't
right?
seen. I haven't.
Double S in the end.
Ferris. Ferris.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he. That's definitely a great name, but a great author too. Like
Now
Tim Ferriss.
my favorite name is on my dad's side, my grandma, not great grandma, but my grandma, her maiden name was Easterling.
Easterling.
Like the silver. You know how there's sterling silver?
Easterling.
There's also Easterling silver.
Damn.
Easterling silver is the cheapest silver.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like you come from a very interesting place. Like Midwest. Is that Midwest?
It is the Midwest.
It's Midwest.
It's a little
It's
more
Midwest, dude.
Yes, it's Midwest.
That's the epitome of America.
I think that's where a lot of the culture, that you see in movies and things like the Midwest, I'd say, has a very traditional family culture.
I mean, I will tell you a story. We were with Ronaldine and Magnus down Seattle. Well, actually, not Seattle, even back Birmingham. Is that the the place Birmingham? Birmingham, yeah. Like I think that's like 1 hour away from Seattle.
I don't know. I know Birmingham, Alabama. I don't know Birmingham, Seattle, or
I think,
Washington.
I think like Washington State, right? Like 1 hour away from Seattle, and there was this lady who had your accent, and we were ordering, and then I'm like, "Are you from? Where are you from?" And she's like, "I'm from Kentucky." I'm like, yeah, I could definitely tell you are either from Ohio or somewhere there because you have the identical accent.
Really?
Accent.
Okay.
Yeah. She was so friendly, and I'm like, wow, like that's a beautiful place to be from.
Yes, and where I'm from, I'd definitely say people are generally much more friendly, outgoing, ready to help. But the interesting thing is, the further south you go from my area in the Midwest, right? Like if you go like Ohio is less. And then as you go into Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia, like kind of the lower you go, the more hospitable people are, and just general, like it's just a very slight cultural shift, where just people are a little more open,
That makes me want to take the first plane to Appalachian Mountain. Let's see how they treat me there.
Yes. So this is a true story. Is there in the church one of the churches I grew up in, the pastor.
And you used to be a church boy, right?
I used to be a church boy.
What happened after you started singing all of a sudden?
Well,
I think you're a good boy
yeah.
still.
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, I am drinking right now, and
That's considered.
that's considered, in the sect of the Christianity religion I was in, that was a no. Like,
I think it depends on the intention. Like in my Christian Orthodox, definitely alcohol is not like it's very lightweight. But like what I mean is that, yeah, that you're not supposed to drink, but when you drink and you're socially interact
yes.
with no harmful beliefs, or you're not supposed to like do something harmful, or just interacting.
Yes.
I think it's not considered a bad action.
No, for sure. I
You're
agree.
saying in
Yes.
your kind of segment that's no.
And in my segment, it was no alcohol. But
So which
like,
one was your segment?
so
Protestant, right?
So Protestant, but then you have to realize in Protestantism there's many more divisions than there is on the non-Protestant side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Catholic side, or the what's the other side? You have Catholics and then Orthodox side, right? On the more Orthodox side, it's a lot limited factions, right? But once you go in the Protestant side, there's just hundreds.
Yeah.
So I believe, I could be wrong here, but the history of that is like Calvinism, right? Calvin, I think he split and said no, like he'll make the Protestant church. I think he was the first, right? So he started this, and then once that happened, then they just broke more and more, right? Because he split from the Catholic Church, and then it broke more and more.
It's a tough one if you start a church that like look at the name Protestant.
Yes.
I'm protesting, right?
Yes.
And how do you avoid protesting from within, right? Like if you start like almost like
Yes.
a church that with protesting in mind, I'm not shocked that there is 100 variation of that protesting, because everyone is protesting.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
100%.
Right?
And
Like,
I do think that's part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
Is like
it's not unified.
Correct.
You're kind of like,
Yes.
oh, I'm supposed to be kind of like questioning everything.
yes, and
Which is good and bad, because good is like very good to give ideas, but bad is because like now you have like 100 different variations and branches of basically the same thing.
all right. So I have a little theory question for you.
Tell me.
It's not a question. It's more of a hypothetical. Are you ready? So here's my hypothetical scenario.
Yes.
If they never broke away from the Protestant church, right? If it was just, or if the Protestants never broke
I think
away.
I know where you're going.
Yeah. If the Protestants never broke away, would we have had the problem with all of the priests and the children and the?
Isn't that although a Catholic problem?
It's a Catholic problem, yes.
Most of it. I
Yes.
mean, don't quote me on that.
Yes.
But I think
So
that's
yes,
why-
so this is my hypothetical. If the Protestants never separated and they stayed, would they have had such a huge problem with the priests?
That's interesting, but I don't know why that happened though, right? Like, is this like
I have a theory
is
on
the
this.
sole like why was that why was a Protestant church I guess risen? Was it because of that? Was it because of the problem with the priests?
So the so my history here isn't quite as good. I mean, I learned this in school, and I'm just like, this is like,
Yeah.
in my school we learn this kind of stuff, and
Not in Greek.
Not
in Greek church. You only learn in Greek school. You only learn about Greek Orthodox. And I'm kidding. We had all this. So we had 99 page of Greek history, and then 5. Like that was never part of the
Yes.
exam about like Germany. Like we have 1 page for Germany, half a page for US.
I
mean,
think in
US,
US it
you-
was
you can
it was
sum it up-
it's a,
you can
I
sum it
think
up-
US we had 50% US history
Oh, really?
and then 50% world. You know, like that was, you know, but a good 50% US history. So we're not quite the 95%.
Man, that must have been a boring class. You guys have no history.
You know what
Actually, I
our
was surprised though when I went to Austin, in Texas, when I
Yes.
visited. It brought me a lot of good memories from Greece, and I realized how much their history you guys have, or just like 250 years of existence, right? So
we do have quite a
little
bit.
bit
I mean,
more than that, but yeah.
lot of stuff happened, and I think things are still happening, right? If you look on what's going on in the USA right now, and
think about this. Like, I think it comes to a point where when you grow as a country and you become like 1,500 years or 2,000 years, then you have to omit certain negligible details, right? So something so big becomes so negligible in the grand scheme of things, and then you only get the good stuff out of it. And I think it always happens, you know, even in the dark ages, right? Like, you had this kind of like good history, like, you know, Greece, for instance, like had a fantastic history 2,000 years ago. But then what happened between, you know, like, let's say 30 after Christ and now? Like, you're like, I don't know what happened, because yeah, like, you know, it was pretty stagnant. I mean,
Yes.
many things happened, but nothing that can, I guess, compare to what happened before that, right? And I think the same goes for America. Like, of course, you can summarize a lot of things that has happened in the 200 years, but if you ask yourself, what will be the outcome, or what will people remember in, let's say, 2,000 years from now? I think you'll be shocked, you know, to learn that not much, you know. From
Yeah.
what, maybe now it seems like a big deal, but in the grand scheme of things, I think like it's pretty minor.
I think just in my own, like, so from my own education, if I were to like add 2,000 more years of history to U.S. history, and then you were asked me in 2,000 years from now, and my lifetime, or like up until now, the 200 years, 200 over years that we've had as a country in the U.S., I could pick a handful, maybe like 5 things that would just stick out as like these things were the big things that happened in like the U.S. Right?
Really?
So one was the rebellion, the Revolutionary Army
That's big.
against Great Britain, right? The UK.
Basically,
England.
that's how you start
Yes.
as a country.
That's how we started as a country. So that's the first one. Second one would be Civil War, right? Then you can add on when you start talking about suffrage of women rights and black folks becoming citizens, right? Because
Right.
that people want to correlate those with the Civil War, but when the Civil War ended, the slaves weren't free immediately,
Right.
right? So I would give some of those, and then I think those are the big ones, right? Like think like the suffrage rights. So how many people could vote?
Yeah.
So slavery, Civil War, and the Revolutionary War.
So now you have to ask yourself, in a grand scheme of things, in 2,000 years from now, will any of those be remembered?
I think those 4 will be remembered for sure. Maybe the suffrage rights, I could see those being forgotten about more.
I
you know.
think when I think about that, I think in terms of global civilization and humanity, I think maybe the first one would be remembered, but everything else, like suffrage right, that is very American. Definitely, American history will be
But
there.
that's also Greek, right? Like
I mean, we didn't, like, we had our own rules. You know, like we also had the same problems. But yeah, like, you know, women gained that kind of like access to voting. But in grand scheme of things, like in different kind of like civilizations, as far as I know, we had like different kind of like privileges for women and people, right? So in ancient history, like in Greek history, like a woman had a big power in our society.
Can you explain this a little more? Because you've talked about this before, saying that you view in Greece that women have more rights
Absolutely.
than people in North America.
But they are not generally classified as feminists.
Yes. So explain
And,
this.
Like basically, I think in Greece, women have a very high status and very highly respected. Without the necessary. I would say like in North America, one thing is like everyone is talking about it, right? Like
Yes.
you have all these representatives say, "Oh, we should do this and that," right? But in reality, it doesn't really necessarily. I don't consider there is so much high respect about the woman as it is in Greece or other places, and I think partially is because of the tradition. So like when you go to war, you go to war because of your wife, to protect your wife, family,
Sure.
mother, right? So I think has part to do with when you go to war, you have to fight for something sacred, and that is your mother, your parents, your family, your daughter, right? And yeah, definitely there is a very high respect for the woman in Greece, even though you don't have this kind of like cons or like advertising like, okay, we should respect, right? Because it's a common sense that you should do that, right?
Okay.
Because there's many reasons, right? Like I mean, a woman is sacred because in terms of like as a son, for instance, like your mother is almost the most important person of your life, right?
For sure.
She gave you life, so there is no need to tell to start saying like, oh, you should respect your mother. I mean, that's very common sense. Like it's a common sense to think about, right? So yeah, I think it's a different society. But if you go to Greece, someone might say, "Oh my God, what are you doing about like it's so traditional, almost like, like you see, like it's considered normal, like to be like for a man to be in the kitchen, he can say, "Oh, I don't do that kind of stuff," right? And you can see that's very common.
Dude,
but that
I
man,
see this in you, bro.
I try my best.
You try your best in the kitchen.
Yeah, Ronaldin, don't. I'm pretty sure you would agree.
Hey, I'll tell one story. Side note,
Tell me.
I tried to teach Mene how to make bread, and we were making traditional sourdough bread. Like old school shit. And
That was hard.
after 10 minutes, Mene's like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm done." I'm like, "Dude, we got like a lot more to go here." Like,
My father is much better. Like he actually can cook. He can cook. I think it's a personal thing. Like my brother is very good too, Johan. He's very good at cooking. Actually, he enjoys it. I view it as a waste of time, But sometimes I do it and I'm like, oh, this is actually therapeutic, Like it unplugs you very well.
I think it does.
But it's like, to me, I'm like, like I'd rather be coding. I'd rather be doing something else.
It's particularly when you start making complicated meals.
Yeah.
I view it as a waste of time. Like when you're doing it yourself, right? Like if I were to make a complicated meal every single day, it's a waste of my time, right? But like once a week or every, like to make a complicated one, that's fine. But like my go-to is just like make me a steak. That's easy to do. That's fast to do. I can sear it on both sides.
Yeah, one series that I was watching, like Hannibal Lecter, like the cannibal.
I know the
You
cannibal. I was not aware that you were
I saw that way back.
a fan.
I love human meat.
Oh Jesus!
But the thing is, like I remember, like the guy was always in the kitchen, and he was like preparing the meals.
Yes,
I mean, it makes sense now because he was
eating them.
Yeah, but he really enjoyed that process, and if you look at the movie, I mean, it's interesting to even measure how much time he spent on that beautiful kitchen that he had. But yeah, it's on my thing.
Yep.
I'd rather I said again, like I'd rather code or I'd rather do something else. But I definitely respect a lot of people like who do that. Like I know Ronaldin, like
she cooks a lot, bro.
Man, yeah, and she's a very good cook. My mother also, like she's very, she's
your mother cooked for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I cook for her too.
What? Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I made her the spaghetti. Spaghetti.
Oh my god. By the way, not he and my mother. I was there. Okay.
Oh.
My father would be very pissed if Auntie and my mother was just sitting on them.
I won't make any jokes on that regard
Yeah.
because I want to live tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, like what I don't want is your dad, you know, to be like, I'm going to Canada tomorrow. I made a plane ticket.
I remember this. What was it? American Pie, kind of like the guy who loved well,
Apple pie?
like the American Pie was like the
The
guy,
movie. The movie.
the guy who loved them, the friend's mother. You know?
Oh.
Do you remember that guy?
Yes.
The MILF guy or
The
something.
milk.
Yeah,
Mene,
Stifler's mom. I think that was it. Stifler's mom, right?
Mene, what's a MILF?
Yeah. But I do remember that, and I was like hilarious. You know, like oh damn, yeah. You could be that guy. You know.
I could be that guy. I'm not sure how that makes me feel.
Oh come on, it's fine. We can cut that if you don't want. We can.
No, it's fine,
It's
bro.
okay, it's
you know, I'll own this. You know, I'm the guy that would, you know, go after the old lady.
Oh
you
my
know?
goodness. Hey.
I'll own that.
Not certainly not nowadays. Certainly not nowadays. You know, I've seen you. You say one thing, you go in the other segment.
Ah, yes.
Diversifying, my friend.
I'll just drink this so I can.
If you keep on drinking more, you say more and more truths. You know, this is very good. Yeah. Maybe
Bro, come on.
We should get some more ice.
Oh, you need some more ice?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's.
I can do it.
I got it for you, bro.
Okay.
Knowing you, that's gonna take you like 20 minutes.
And we can probably cut that. Do I want to do this?
So where were we, bro? We were talking about.
We were talking about Stifler's mom.
Ah, yes.
So
And
you
you were
can remember-
comparing me to this guy.
He actually had this nose exactly like you do. Smile to the camera. Okay,
Hello.
I want now. You know, who's gonna do the editing?
Farnood
Farnood.
does the video,
Okay,
and Barost does the audio.
Farnood, please put the guy who likes Stifler's mom directly next to him. I think they look alike. Okay.
You know, Farnood, do this. So
Please,
on the podcast,
yeah.
put me
Please.
and him, and let's see.
I'm pretty sure that you guys
Yes.
have similarities. Not the hair, but
Yep.
definitely the nose.
Did you ever see this? Crap. There was another movie that people said I looked like. There was a guy in there. Weird Al or something like. No, it was some. It was about this guy who had like dark black hair and was just like a crazy like. And I was like, yeah, that okay.
Man,
Thank
he's
you.
a good guy. He's not crazy. Maybe a little bit, but
Hey.
nothing too worrisome.
Do you know what they say? We're on planet Earth. It helps to be crazy.
Ooh.
Yes.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to Ronaldin's friend, who's a social worker,
Yes.
and she's working in Chinatown, not too far from my place. For those of you who don't know, Chinatown, like a rough area, okay, for Vancouver downtown, east side. So a lot of like, you know, I asked her, okay, so she's responsible for the injection site in Chinatown.
Yes.
So I asked her, does this work? Like I asked her how many people get out of that situation. She's like, virtually no one. So, and the damage is already done. So I'm like, so why are you keep on giving them drugs if this clearly doesn't work? And she asked me, why is war happening if it doesn't work? Why are, you know, all these unfortunate events happening if these things don't work?
Wow.
And actually I'm like, oh damn, that's a good point. Some things happen and there is no good solution. And you know, I think that's one of them. You can't help
agree.
it, you know?
I agree.
Like I was always wondering, like, oh, like I would do this, I would do that, but in that kind of like big problems, like there is no good solution. And you know, it's the same thing as why is the war happening in Ukraine and Russia? Nobody knows. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people have speculation.
I have some
really
speculation there.
But really, it's a mess, and
Yes.
people are dying. And why is it happening? Well, it's happening, right?
Yes.
And people are gonna have the same problems in all parts of the world, which equate to this kind of unfortunate events.
And,
right?
and you know what I believe? It's this is true both globally and locally and nationally, which is that there's very few people who are controlling things, and people, particularly who, when there's a consolidation of power, right, they get corrupted by many different things, right? And so I think what you're seeing a lot in the world right now is just a lot of the way the reason things are. Like the one reason things are the way they are in Chinatown, in East Hastings Street, and in Ukraine is because there are people in power who have things to benefit from that situation, right? Like
Definitely special interest.
yes, 100% special interest. There are, it's like the old uh, there's like a saying that like some U.S. arms dealers sell weapons to both sides.
Are you
You know?
shocked?
No, I'm not. I'm not shocked.
Are you?
I'm not shocked. But this is the mentality, right?
Yeah.
People.
I'm not shocked that America has some iffy business. I mean, you guys are notorious for that,
We are. So I think
And up until like this 40 years of dominance,
yes,
because it has been, I think, since 1980s until 2020 almost, I would say like America was by far number one, like by far in all of the aspects.
yes, I
Not
think
so much.
no,
now.
I agree with you, and I think what's happened, to be honest, is a couple of things. So the U.S. has shifted its focus from being economically dominant to being military dominant, right? Like if you go back 30 years ago, the U.S. was involved in military conflict, but it's not like it is today. Like yes, we had Vietnam and some things like this going on, but like before, like the last 30 years has been 40 years has been a real shift in American policy of where the state, and when I'm talking the state, I'm talking the government, has had a shift to being military strength versus winning other countries over through economics, right? So I think that's one. And then the other one is corruption, right? Like when you're corrupt is like what's
Hey,
going
you're
on
a big
now.
country, man. You're like 300 million.
Yes,
like
300 million.
California is bigger than Canada.
That's crazy.
That's yeah, it's hard to control so many people.
My state, Ohio, 10 million people, 1/3 of Canada.
But then there you have China, and then
exactly.
A single guy controls 1 billion. There we go.
Over 1 billion, bro. And India, isn't their population? Didn't they just surpass China?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're at 1.5, or I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane.
I think those kind of regimes, like in this kind of number, actually you cannot have any kind of like system of non-authoritarian. Unfortunately,
yes. I think
it's a numbers game.
I think governments need to be designed to distribute power. Like one thing that really scares me is like when people are talking the New World Order or like a global government, that scares the shit out of me. And the primary reason for that is if you look how all of the individual countries, if you look at all their corruption, and then you say, oh, but now let's put that corruption on a global level. Let's get all those countries and now have an organization above all that. That's just even more corruption, right? Yeah. So for me, I'm a big fan on local power, state power, and, much less federal power. And like the U.S.
It's pretty good at that,
generally. U.S. used to be stronger, and then as the years have gone by, the U.S. government, the federal government, has just assumed more and more authority over the states. This is an interesting shift, but this is an interesting story too. I learned this from a history teacher, a college professor. I sat in her class. I forget her name. But we were comparing the Articles of Confederation with the U.S. Constitution. I'm assuming you've never heard of Articles of Confederation.
So what's that? I'm not
So-
American.
Yeah. So this is interesting. The Articles of Confederation were the first constitution in the United States. And that was overthrown and replaced with the U.S. Constitution
By whom?
10 or 20 years later. So it was very short-lived.
Okay.
Very short-lived. And what's interesting on this note, for one, Articles of Confederation had a clause in there that said this can be broken up by X amount of votes, right? And when the Constitution was formed, they didn't even meet those votes. Okay,
Right.
so technically, the Constitution was passed over the Articles of Confederation illegally because the statute, the number of votes were never met. Besides that, the Articles of Confederation gave states much more power than the federal government did. And originally, do you know what federal meant?
Who?
Federal.
I don't know.
The term federal. If you go back to the original...
Federal or federal?
Federal, Federal. The original root of federal. She also taught us this. Like the Federalist Papers. Have you heard of the term the Federalist Papers?
Never.
There were these terms, the Federalist Papers. They were a collection of papers written by the Federalist, who was a party who, was during those. This is where my history gets bad, and I don't want to mess up the side that they were on. But the original term federal actually meant state power, state. But when they were trying to get the U.S. Constitution approved and the stuff, they did a trick, and they said, we're going to create the federal party, the Federalist Party, but we're going to make the term federal mean national, so that people who would vote for this are thinking they're voting for state power, but they're voting for national power.
They scammed you, basically.
They scammed us. Yes.
You're a scam because it's a scam. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm a nationalist. I'm not a federalist.
Exactly.
And yeah, you get brainwashed, basically.
Yes, and
These are very smart people.
Yeah.
They, politicians always play with your little sensitive voices in your mind, and they know what is sensitive.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like I see it all the time. I mean, in Greece for sure, but politicians always pick up a side that generally it's like a business, right? Like I think you generally want to be on mind of the option that will generate you more votes.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, I see this in Vancouver, for instance, where this mayor is kind of like leaning on like, oh, I'm empathetic, but by the way, I'm gonna solve homelessness.
And how has that gone? Because you live in Chinatown,
it's such yeah, I think it's ultra failed for many reasons. I mean, one reason is that actually he did decamp. So I thought I was surprised that he did that, and that was, in my opinion, was very smart because, I mean, I live there. The amount of ambulances and fire trucks that I hear every night is hysterical.
So can you explain the term decamp for those who aren't
I mean,
aware?
it's basically in Vancouver you had this big problem of like, well, you still have in some areas, but you have like people who are just camping on the street, who are homeless, right?
And by camping, you mean full-blown tents, like grills,
homeless.
fires. Yes.
Homeless.
People living on the street, homeless, but they bring like everything with them.
And this is not outside city. This is downtown Vancouver, like 5 minutes from the core downtown, right?
And when you say this is a section of town, this isn't one block. This is like kilometers. Yes.
Yeah. There's like more of like 2 kilometers that this is so crazy, big, right? So yeah, definitely big problem. So he did decamp, which I guess, I thought that was a good thing. I was actually a little bit positive that, now that he decamp, like I think, it's gonna pretty much not be a problem. But guess what? Now I see a lot of more homeless be on the street and without a camp, but
Yes.
be there and basically have the same problem, right? I mean, it's an unfortunate, and like I don't know if I have a good solution for that. I cannot definitely claim that I have, but one interesting thing I think for me as a citizen is like I come from Greece and Albania, and those are far more less superior economically speaking countries. We don't have that problem. So in my simple mind, I'm like, how come the Western world, who is so much more advanced in some areas, especially economy, has this problem?
So why do you think you don't have that in Greece?
I think we have like common sense. Like, okay, so a common sense rule is that you never give something bad to someone that has zero chance of making them any better,
Okay.
right? And I mean social workers can tell you that this thing does not help them at all, like has zero chance. Yeah, I mean, they definitely can survive, but how they don't get better, right? It doesn't make them better, and most of them go back into like this kind of hard drugs, right? So I do think that we have a tougher, I would say, approach, less empathetic. And it's sad, but what is it really sad? I mean, what is the alternative? What we have in East Hastings, and the East Hastings alternative is basically the empathetic approach. How is this empathetic? How is this having like 2,000 of people on the street who are in the midst of like their mind is out, like multiple problems? How is that the empathetic solution? I don't understand this.
Someone told me this. A good friend of mine said, anybody who tells you that it's empathetic to allow that to happen,
Yeah,
he's like,
it's out of his mind, right?
is out of his mind.
Yeah.
And the reason is because if that was your mother, like if
Your kid,
yeah,
even, right?
if your mom, Befa or Magnus,
Not gonna win.
yeah, was in the street, you would not go up to them and be like, oh, it's
Here's your drugs.
compassionate, it's okay, like, honey, like, I hope you. No, if you saw your son live in the street, bro, you would like that would hurt you to the core, and you would do everything in your power to try to.
You
like,
could do, but
Yes.
I'm a little bit cautious here because I know a lot of people have parents there.
Yes.
And a lot of parents have tried.
Yes.
And have failed.
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, when you get addicted to this kind of hard drugs, it's impossible to go back. Like, your
Yes.
world becomes that, right? So it's a problem that you definitely want to prevent, but not solve. Because
Yes,
it's
and-
unsolvable.
And my point was only this: that it's not empathetic to say that's okay. It's
not okay. Yeah, it's not
compassionate.
okay.
It's not
It's
okay.
not okay to allow people living on the street. It's not
Yes.
okay by any means to give them drugs.
Yes.
Because the very simple reason, it doesn't fix anything. It's making actually the matters even worse. And it's exemplifying the case that, oh, it's fine, you can be on the street. Or yeah, it's fine, you can do drugs. How good of an example is that?
Yeah, no, this is one thing I always say. Like, if I go out on the street, like me, if I'm dressed in my clothes and I get drunk and I start walking on the middle of the road, like our friends do,
You get arrested.
Yeah, I would get arrested, hands down, right? I would get arrested. But if you're the other situation, if you're homeless and you do the exact same thing,
The city of Vancouver is very tough on your parking for 5 minutes. You leave your car unattended. We were what, like 79th Street, and they told you're evil in the middle of nowhere because you parked 2 inches.
Because
They
I
are
was
so
a
good
foot-
at that,
yes.
right? But when it comes to like having people with homeless and all sorts of problems, they're fine. So how is that not hypocritic?
Oh, I think it is. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't house people and that we shouldn't do everything in our power to make it to help the situation. But I don't think letting them just live on the streets and do drugs in front of your daughter or your son,
Doesn't do anything. Yeah.
that's not the solution.
Well, I mean, it hasn't solved anybody's problem.
No.
Judging on the data, but it happens.
Oh, it happened.
And I think the best justification is what Ronaldin's friend said, well, bad things happen all the time, and that's one of them. And there is no good solution, just like the war. There is no good solution.
Yes.
What's a good solution? Like Ukraine winning the war, basically that would equate to like a lot of people getting killed, right?
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, yeah, bad things keep on happening, and that's how it goes.
I view it honestly, the homeless problem. I view it solely. I won't say solely, but hugely. I'm Trump now, right? Hugely.
Bigly.
Bigly. I view it as just a bell curve, right? That if you have a graph like this,
Yeah,
a bell, like this, that you're gonna have very, 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 very high performers in the middle, right? Who achieve like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. You could even put Biden, Trump, Hillary,
I think it's
all
on
those
the first
people.
side though, because you have the 0.1% who are very successful.
Yes.
Then you have the middle class in the bell curve. Right?
Well, the middle class is
the volume.
So the peak in the center.
Okay.
That's like your number one high performer. So like at the like the bell curve like this.
Right.
And then you have in the center you have all your normal people, and then towards the end you have so maybe you're right. Maybe the
problem is volume wise, right?
Yeah,
You go from 1% or 1%.
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
The edges are 1%.
The edges, yeah.
So I would put like the high performers at 1%.
Yes.
Then the middle class is at 98.
Yes. You're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. So on the fringes, on the fringes, you have the good and the bad.
Farnood, I need the graph, the bell curve graph
yes.
right here, and I'm explaining.
Come on, Farnood, we're counting on you, buddy. Right now, I want a bell curve and explain how Mene was right because I was wrong on that analogy.
Well, I think one thing that is good in your podcast you can consider adding is like more media.
Oh, for sure. Like I was going to ask for your TV.
My TV.
But it was given away.
This is given away.
So I was gonna put it like here or here because I thought we could use that too. I want to get to a point when I have someone who's managing the recording who can be like put the stuff up. Like,
hey, after this goes live, we go big, right?
You know what? I need a new young Jamie. That's a JRE, a Joe Rogan.
Oh, is he
So Jamie is the guy that does everything behind the scenes, and they call him Young Jamie like 10 years ago, and he's younger than everyone else. So I need a new young Jamie.
So do you aspire to be like kind of like Joe Rogan? Is that who you want to be?
Well, so I don't want to be like Joe Rogan. I just want to be me, and I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, and like there are things I like about his format, which is. The thing I adopted most from his format is just talking to people unscripted, uninterrupted. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah, I think he has that flexibility to be very honest. And he worked very hard to get there.
Yes.
I don't think you can do that. I definitely think like at some point you are always tempted to mask a couple of your opinions because of the general public might perceive your opinion as wrong. But I think one thing he does very well is that he can carry his opinion without pushing it too hard. So he can say,
yes,
listen, that's my opinion, right? And you don't have to really agree with that, right? It's my opinion. Like you know what I mean? And sometimes it's very controversial and can be considered, a little bit cliche. But one thing you have to tell about this guy, like he makes you think, right? Doesn't he? Right?
Yeah.
Even
100%.
if you don't agree with him, he's like, okay, well, let me think about that because he's very smart. I think so. Yeah, I think that's a great example to be trying to be.
Yeah.
Even though I know the Pinson is way more interesting.
Way more interesting than
way more interesting like a bald guy. Like.
Oh.
Sorry, Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
He has way more hair.
I'm
he has
sorry
lived.
for what the people on my podcast say. I can't control them.
It's
so don't-
the Lafroig.
it's
So
the
I wouldn't
Lafroig.
have said that joke if it was not. I blame that Lafroig right here.
But I do believe what you say is true. And I'll take it a step up a notch, which is higher than Joe. It's our society today. We can't have, at least in the public sphere, right? And the mainstream media sphere, we can't have two people have different opinions and get along and then go on with their merry way.
I've seen change on that. Especially now with the shuffling, kind of like
Yes.
what was his name? The Fox News guys. The Fox News.
Oh, Tucker Carlson?
Tucker, yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of left and he went on Twitter and like I think people are now. I think Elon Musk also helped with that in a way that, well, he did a lot of things that upset especially the art industry, the tech industry, but he did some things right too. Like I think he has created a Twitter space. Actually, I think right now is for everyone. So it doesn't matter where you're from, even if you have some sort of like a little bit too crazy ideas. At least you can as long as they don't harm anyone, you can go and tell your opinion, right? And I think that's great. Like you need more diversity in these opinions rather than just like, oh, let's create this social platform that only has a single audience.
No, I agree. Like,
I mean, there are places for everything. Like I know, like what was the truth social that Trump created?
Yes.
Okay, that's definitely only right.
Yes.
Like you don't, if you're left, you don't go, you don't download that app. But I think there is always place and time.
But so I've never been on True Social. I'll probably never be on True Social.
You haven't?
No, I haven't.
Why? I would be very interested to see what they say. I think I tried to download that, but I wasn't able to because I'm not a US citizen. So actually they block your IP. But I was interested because I'm like,
just curious.
What do they say? Like I want to
Yes.
see their discussion, but I'm expecting a lot of right wing like QAnon members to be like completely conspiracy.
Oh, I agree with you.
UFOs will attack us and all this stuff.
But here's what I will say is that wouldn't exist if they didn't kick him out like they did.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, I think he wouldn't be. Should have he been kicked? Well, he was very polarizing person. Like he made all these people like go there, right? Like do that indirectly. It's kind of like brainwashing people.
He did do.
He plays. He's a very good politician because even though he says he plays the card, I'm not a politician. He's actually a very good politician, and he got elected because he's very smart and he demagogue. All these dictators who are really like very good at, basically playing audiences, and he's very, he makes you believe, and then you as a crowd you follow him. Then he says, okay, go and let's do this.
Oh, and he's smart because he says do these things, but he doesn't he says it in a roundabout way.
Like all of these people die, and then at the end, after they die, it's like, oh, okay, be peaceful. I'm like, oh, really? Like, anyway, I don't want to turn political, but I definitely think that you as an individual, you have to be very careful who you trust as your leader because. You can be played very easily because these people are extremely intelligent, even though they look very plain.
Oh yeah, 100%. And people who say that Trump's not intelligent, like,
come on,
they're
like,
kidding themselves.
He's a president. He used to be the president. Your president. Like people voted for him.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Record numbers.
You
can't say this guy is a moron, right?
There's a lot of things that Trump does that I disagree with. So I'm definitely not a Trump supporter by any means.
Everyone loved him when he wasn't a politician, though.
But
everyone was
yeah.
like the American
Yeah,
god.
you're right.
He was
You're
like
right.
Trump Hotel. I'm going Trump Hotel. Like everyone loved him. He becomes politician, then everything goes down.
Dude, I grew up watching the show The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Like Trump was in my home. Like
Yeah,
from
the art
like,
of the deal.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with my political sides or
I mean, I know you're far right.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me that.
it has everything to do with where I grew up, which is Midwest Ohio, right?
You guys
That's
are
where-
red state, right? For sure.
No. So Ohio used to be a swing state.
Wow.
So like I think we elected Obama twice, right? Was Ohio, and then we went to Trump.
Now that's one inspirational leader that nobody can tell you he was not. Like I think that's
No.
That's part.
You're-
That's one thing that people will remember. Obama. They
Yes.
won't remember Trump. They won't
You-
remember Biden. They will remember Obama though. That was a good leader. For them.
So I liked Obama's statesmanship was phenomenal. Like how he talked to people, his openness.
He's such
like
an inspirational
yeah,
leader.
and-
Like
and-
he
yes.
knows how to talk. He knows how to he knows how to motivate you, and
Yes.
he is putting a good persona.
yes,
Personally, do I think that that's real? That's really who this guy is behind that? Nobody knows.
I don't
But
know.
I
Yeah.
like what I see.
But there's the one thing that I is the one small criticism I would have on Obama is if you compared to the speeches like Obama had versus the speeches like JFK had, or even Eisenhower as he was leaving office, right? Like Eisenhower, when he left, he said one of the big things I want to talk about today on his last presidential address to the country, he spoke about the military-industrial complex, and he's like, you have to be aware of the military-industrial complex. When you talk about JFK, he was talking about going to the moon. He was talking about what you can do for your country. He was talking about secret societies and things like this. So my criticism of Obama was on a lot of his inspiration. There wasn't a lot of meat behind the words he was saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It like if you remember his first campaign was vote for change, vote for change, vote for change. There wasn't like
And you lived it more than me because I
Yeah.
was not a part of that, right? But I do
Yeah.
remember these, first black
dude, like
first black president.
I love
right?
Obama, man. Like
And that's his whole package was great.
Yes.
Like he's kind of like, okay, I'm different, right? And
yeah.
Can you imagine his when he grew up, this guy? I mean, you talk about my appraising, like like trying to be a politician of like a person of color and just be in there with all these savages who have been growing privileged generations of Bush and all of these guys who have their families almost like kings,
Yes.
like Buckingham Palace kind of style. They're not much different.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, they don't have this like queens or king's blood, but they definitely are in this political ecosystem, right? And so you have this outsider come and just disrupt you, and it's almost like a young startup unicorn disrupt the space.
And this is why I love the
But
USA.
I
Is
do-
because anybody, theoretically on paper, anybody can do that. Like I'm not saying
Good.
in practicality
It
it's
happened.
true.
It happened.
It happened.
Yeah, someone did it. Yeah.
And
Someone did it.
let's be
It's
honest.
hard. It's hard to do it. Yeah.
Even look at Trump. Trump did it.
Mm-hmm.
He to exactly what you said, which
To
was
me, I'm
yeah.
surprised Biden did it. Like to me, that's the outsider. How come like your grandpa win? That to me, that is the biggest outsider of ever. I was not expecting that. Like to me, it's like less about like Trump and Obama. People won't change, but then you go and you vote. Like that's the biggest surprising factor.
I wasn't surprised.
You weren't.
I felt that one, but I'll tell you one thing. I felt because I grew up in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
And so during the 2016 election, I was in Ohio, and I knew that Ohio was a swing state. And
Yeah.
so when Trump was elected, I wasn't surprised at all. And the reason was because where I grew up, every sign I saw was Trump, Trump, Trump,
yeah.
Trump, and like they were everywhere. And I'm not saying I was like actually I wasn't happy that Trump was elected when he was elected, but
I remember you
I
went
wasn't
out
surprised.
and you start honking and
I
with
start honking,
American
yeah.
flag. Yeah. I'm proud to be an American.
Da, 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 do.
But yeah, no, it's interesting, and I do remember that day. A lot of people were very upset.
There was
when
a
he
lot.
won.
Yes.
He's like, I'm gonna move. What was this famous Hollywood actors like? I'm gonna move out from USA. It never,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
never did.
Hey, dude, you know what? Like, I did it though, bro.
You did it,
I did it.
but for different reasons.
You know, I will say this on that note. Moving to Canada as a person has made me much more patriotic of USA. Much more patriotic.
I think it
Living
happens
out
to
in my country.
all the immigrants.
Do you think so?
100%. Like when I left Greece 2015, I actually hated like so bad. Like I was tired of the public sector. I was tired of this system that doesn't let you rise on the opportunity. I was tired of all of these like hurdles, and you want to move on for a better life. When you come on a new life, you realize, oh, actually they do have the same problems here, maybe different style, but they do have problems.
Yes.
And then you appreciate stuff that you had back home, right? Like stuff that you took for granted. But only if you move, you realize like, oh, that's not the thing, right?
Yes.
Like that they don't sit up. Like for instance, in Greece, we sit with each other and we drink coffee for 3-4 hours and we just talk. We do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we talk, and that's very uncommon here. So I was appreciating that. I actually miss that, So it's I think it makes you more patriotic. Like when you migrate, you appreciate a lot more aspects and you get to see the big picture. But I would like to caution, like when you go back, you're like maybe I missed it for too much. So I've seen a lot of variations of that, like kind of like.
What would you mean missed it too much?
Well, kind of like, when you go back, you have this idea of like, oh, this is so much better already. Because
okay.
And then you forget the negatives of your country.
Yes.
So every time you have to go to that public sector that I was talking about, or if you have to do something that is a drawback, you forget about that. So you tell to yourself, oh, how beautiful it is, because how well you had it, and now you don't have it anymore. But I think you have to be fair in your assessment. Like for me, when you compare Greece to Canada, there is pros and cons, but I'm overall very happy I am here, even though this place is not, excellent or perfect by all means. It's a lot of problems, but I think overall, if you compare the average life, it offers you a much better life, right?
Than
and that's
Greece.
why, and that's why I like it, right? And that's why I think like my family here has a much better chance to live a much more better life, right? And yeah, I mean, is it perfect? No, but who is perfect? Where is perfect, right? There is no such place. So yeah,
I agree 100% on that. Let me ask this question. You talked in the past that you like to retire in Greece. So just explain that.
I mean, I would be crazy. I would be
Yeah.
crazy if not to.
So explain that in the context of what you just said, which is like there's more opportunity here in Canada.
Yeah.
So explain that to me.
I mean, when you retire, you don't want opportunity. You want peace.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like basically, you're kind of like settled back and just almost philosophical about your life. And I think what's a better place to do it than Greece? Like everyone wants to retire in a sunny place, right? Or everyone wants to retire in a calm place that you live simple life, right? I mean, we are software engineers, so we necessarily live a very different life. I mean, you know what I mean? Like ideally, you want to be in a situation where you're very, very calm, and there is nothing like home. Like I do think like your home where you were raised, that's where I think you feel generally more more natural. So
Okay.
I think you have to be crazy not to like Greece. You know, like
And
there is a lot of things we don't do right, and there is a lot of problems. But how can you not like the sun, the beach, and just the calmness, and like the beauty of that country, man? Like this is, I don't know how can you not like that.
hey, I'll tell you one thing. I've met people in Vancouver, and I'm like, it's a nice day today. It's really, really sunny. And I've heard people say to me before, I prefer it when it's gloomy outside.
And I think people are raised like this, right? So
Yes.
you like what you are raised with.
I agree.
I mean, how can you like the rain? I don't. Can I swear?
Yeah, of course, man. This
I
is
don't fucking know, but
course.
but like like there is, yeah. I guess some people like rain. I've heard people like when they told me like you never like rain. So people who moved here say that no matter how long you go, even if you come here, you live 10 years, you will never like rain. I actually disagree with that. I've noticed a change in my mind. Like before, it was raining, and when it's raining in Greece, everyone is inside
Mhm.
because it's unlikely. It happens very rarely, and nobody really wants to go outside. But here, I wanted to do the same, so I was never going out when I first came in Vancouver. But after a while, actually, it's like even if it rains, my life goes on, right? Like I
Yeah,
go
yeah, yeah.
running, I go biking, or I used to before I had a son. Now I'm just like with my son all the time. But back then, I used to
Hey,
play.
now you watch Magnus bike in the rain.
Well, yeah, about
soon,
that.
soon to be.
When I go to the snow, yeah.
When can kids start biking? Like, is that like 4 or 5? Like,
So
when
he
is
can
this?
start biking, but he doesn't have these pedals thing.
Oh,
So I
okay.
saw this other kid had this bike and he really wanted. So I'm actually the first thing I'm gonna do in Toronto, buy him a bike.
Okay.
Because he liked it so much, right? And he likes basketball too. So I'm gonna get that. I guess the only reason is here we have a ball, but yeah, he loves like basketball. So I think your role as a parent is to give your kid whatever they feel that they're good at or they are interested at, so you can ignite, right? Like maybe that turns into a passion. Maybe they need to follow the passion, right? So I think that's your primary goal among others, but that's your primary goal as a parent, to provide
Sure.
and direct, help them out in what they are more inclined to do.
I agree on that. There was
Cheers to that.
cheers to that, bro. Cheers.
If you are at home, feel free to grab a beer and join us right now.
Mene, right now, I'm gonna say, go, bro.
Oh man, no, I'm
Zip
not
it,
doing that.
zip
Man,
it.
I have to do a podcast. Like in the last 10 minutes, I can zip it, okay? Because then the effect will not be visible to the audience.
I want to see Mene. Like,
Oh, I'm inspired from the East Hastings talk we did. Yeah. No, it's not. Well, it can be alcohol. It's also bad, right? Like when you
dude,
get into that state,
everything
yeah.
can be like. If I just want to say I want to stay home and sleep 24 hours a day, that's not good for me.
Yeah.
But 6 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep, that's very good for you. But 24, too much of anything is too much.
I remember my brother once slept for 18 hours.
18.
18 hours.
Hey, speaking of your brother, when
Shout out to Johan.
Johan Kotsollaris, or if you're from Greece, if you're from Albania, Kotsollaris,
Kotsollari.
Kotsollaris,
Yeah, Kotsollari.
Kotsollaris.
Yep.
But in Greece, Kotsollaris.
Yeah, it's UADS, when we took our citizenship,
Yes.
we were presented with the Greekified name option, so we definitely chose that.
Of course.
It's I think it sounds better, but yeah, it's up for discussion.
I would imagine in Albania, they prefer Kotsollaris.
Well, in Albania, you definitely present yourself as Kotsollari.
But by the way, speaking of Albania, did you watch that one little clip that I sent you of Albania?
Which was?
It was from a movie, War Dogs. When I forget the guy's name,
I think I remember. Yeah, with the shotgun.
But no, maybe. But he was like, "Have you ever been to Albania?" And the guy's like, no. It's like, oh, it's a beautiful country. And then the next thing, and in the next scene you hear is you just see Albania, and it's just completely
Oh,
gray.
yeah, do you remember?
Yeah.
And you remember the shuttles of the war?
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
Actually, it's funny thing. Like that dictator that I told you, like what was his name? Everhoja.
Yes.
He was so insane that he built like 1 million shuttles.
Shuttles.
Like,
Buses?
have you seen those shuttles that
Shells? I'm not, what's
almost
what's
like-
a shuttle?
almost like a shell that you can cover yourself in case someone sends you a bomb? You can actually fight them.
Oh.
Have you seen those like in the ground?
I haven't.
You haven't
no.
seen those? Please, Farnud, add that. I'll send you that picture from so people know. But that is like, so he actually spent a lot of money. So now if you go to Albania, you will see this kind of like, shells that they protect you and they make you ready so you can start fighting. So I mean, you are from that place, right? You have a different origin from Vancouver.
Okay. Here's a physiological question for you.
Mhm.
Okay, are you ready for this
Let's
one?
go.
Let's go. Greece and Albania go to war. Which side do you fight on?
I'm not fighting any war, bro. Like I'm not fighting any war. I'm not. I think wars are a very silly and easy way to kill yourself, and I think people get very easily attached to this patriotically, and it's very. I think the marketing of war is basically you fight for your mother and your son and your family.
Yes.
But in reality, you fight for a government that decided to beef with another government. And, whether you want to claim that that's not true or not, maybe that's up to you. But I think the marketing versus reality is a big difference, right? And I wouldn't speculate my whole life just to see if I'm right or wrong, right? So I would personally try to do my best to get my family out of that situation, absolutely. But I would stay away from any fighting.
I think
Because
that's
Your life
yeah.
is not worth the speculation. in my
I
opinion.
think you're actually smart on that.
Maybe I'm a chicken.
Most of the time, not all the time. But how about this? In the modern era, most of the wars like the U.S. has been involved in, like I don't believe in that cause at all.
Imagine if you are, I mean, all the respect to these warriors, right? But like, imagine if you are like, I don't know, in Afghanistan, okay? And you are Navy SEALs and you have a friend who died. Why did he die for?
Yeah.
Why? Your family was not under attack. You didn't protect your kid from the stroller from a maniac that come and attack you, right? Which, yeah, you can fight. On the street fight, you have to protect your family, your wife and your son, or your kids. But what is the justification that you're dying on a war that you are like miles away from your own country? That is a blow to me. Like, it's such a devastating. You should never do that. And the same thing goes for Russia and Ukraine. Like, you have all these young kids who are fighting. Why? I don't know why. Like, they are fighting for whom exactly? Well, they are fighting for a dictator and for a regime, and one regime and another regime. No, thank you. I don't want to participate in that. Like,
No, I agree with you.
I don't want to
like,
participate at all.
The only thing I will say is, I believe that as a country, you need to really honor and support your troops, the people who fight for you. But most of the conflicts that we have been involved in would be conflicts that I wouldn't participate in. Like World War II, it's a very different type of war than what's going on now.
Yeah. In Ukraine. I mean,
yeah.
And I mean, all props to Ukrainians. Okay, you are peacefully living and drinking coffee one day, and the other day someone knocks your door and say, "Get the hell out."
Yes.
I mean, how can you not fight? Like, what you're gonna do, right? Like,
100%.
I don't want to say like I wouldn't fight in that situation, right? Now, would I want to go and participate in any of this war without someone knocking my door and asking for trouble? No. But if someone, if you have to self-defend, you can do whatever you have to do, right? But yeah, I would generally avoid any sort of conflict. Like, I think as times has shown, whether it takes 3 years, whether it takes 6 years, eventually the conflict gets resolved. And it's not the fight that wins the war, it's politics, right? So it's dynamics and everything, right? And it's just like basically sheer who do you collaborate with? Like if the Russians know that Americans and all the world are against them, they probably are willing to compromise, right? It's not gonna be a full blown war, most likely. At least, not,
You know what?
at
I
least
certainly hope not.
at
I,
least-
I
well,
really
I
hope
mean,
that.
famous last words, like before the actual nuclear, which is it has happened before, but it's very less likely that it will happen, right? I mean, compared to all the wars that have happened, there is only what 2 times that nukes were used,
Yeah.
and guess who used them? America. The only country that forces
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
the only country that forces others to not have nukes, but the only country that hasn't used nukes. Isn't that ironic?
This is a part of our history. You know, those attacks that the U.S. did on Japan were, incredible. They were horrible for the people that live there, right? I mean, we decimated civilians.
Isn't Einstein was involved in that, right?
Einstein, I think his
Well,
theory was
he developed. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel bad for that guy.
But before that, a note, but we can talk about it in a moment. But before that, my grandfather looked at my mom one day and said, because my mom was like, I can't believe the nuclear weapons that the U.S. deployed. And then my grandpa was like, but they predicted that if the U.S. invaded those towns, that there would be 100,000 Americans who passed away. So how horrible dropping those bombs they did in the war, and they preserved American lives.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Absolutely.
U.S. predicted that there will be weapons of mass destruction, and guess what happened? Like, there is a lot of predictions. That
For sure.
Would have, could have.
You know what's the most sad thing about that statistic there? Or not statistic, but that when they said those things,
Speculation.
The speculation, yeah, but it wasn't U.S. intelligence,
Right.
so it was. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was British intelligence, but I know for a fact it wasn't. U.S. intelligence didn't say they have weapons of mass destruction. I believe it was British intelligence, and that the U.S. just said the right people in government, like you were saying before, all they did is they heard this one thing, they accepted it, they didn't validate it, and they said, let's invade.
Yeah, it's almost like same what my father says, like results matter. And you can speculate and you can do and you can find all the excuses. But the results is that, we didn't find any of these kind of weapons. Basically, the war was just done for nothing. And you had all these people that died. As like your friends, someone from your school who could have joined that war.
Sure.
Right? How sad that is for that person to be almost brainwashed from their own country and their own government on this almost like marketing genius campaign of, hey, come and save our country. But by the way, you're not even under attack. Isn't that sad?
It's extremely sad.
So that's why I'm saying to my friends, if you ever are into a situation where you fight, you never fight. You run. That's what you do, because you have your life is not worth the speculation.
I agree on your point of fighting for a cause that is for a sitting president whoever is telling you to do these things, right? I'd say a vast majority of the time, the people who are saying go invade or go do this fight, they have their own special interest at heart, right? So in that regard, it's absolutely. But there is that other portion, probably more in historical,
Right. That you will stay defend
for your
because the
family.
attacker.
Yeah. 100%. Like,
I do think that that's a thing of like, yeah, I would, it's very circumstantial. Now, if my if I'm sitting and someone attacks
Yeah.
my family, I will not run. I will fight, right?
oh,
But
100%.
I think it's like almost all, in many cases avoidable.
So,
And prevention is better than cure. Right?
so let me ask this question. Like, do you, in your current mindset,
Right.
if you were in Greece during the Persian invasion?
Persian, shout out to Arman.
Yeah, shout out to Armen. Hey, I tell you what, Armen and guys, you messed up this country here.
Hey,
Okay.
yeah, they definitely did.
Oh, but then you know what they'll tell me is like they'll say, well, but then also they messed us up too with Alexander the Great. Like
Everyone messed everyone up.
and then Armen was like, Alexander the Great.
Fuck
Like,
this
he
guy.
wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was I saying? So my question to you: if you were alive during the Persian invasion of Greece, would you have been in?
Bro, I would be running.
You'd be running.
I know why. The Persian army was fucking huge. There were like 2 million, right? 1 million, 2 million. We were like the Spartans were
Yeah.
I know they were calling them 300, more like 1,000, right?
Okay.
But it was actually very, very small.
Yes.
And the real war happened. And Spartans were very effective, but in the end, everyone died.
Yes.
Right? They killed a lot of people. They were very successful warriors. Like, I think the ratio was like one Spartan could kill 100 people.
Is it true?
It's fucking true.
No. But is it true that the only reason that they perished was because they had a traitor who showed them around the other side?
Exactly. I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, the
Yeah.
history tells you that, but I mean, I think it's more of like / mythology / someone said that.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you win a war when a million people are coming at you? It's a numbers game, and then you're 100 very strong.
Yeah.
They killed a lot of people. They were very successful in their conversion. They converted like one Spartan life for like 100 opponents. But that being said, they all died, right? And I wouldn't really think that's a good trade-off.
So for you, you would say, hey, like, why don't I take my family and try to bounce?
I would definitely do that because like I think it's very romantic to say that, oh, like I'm fighting for my family and I'd rather die. And there are circumstances that you do that. For instance, if someone attacks you on the spot, and you have your family, there is no chance to flight. You have to fight. But on a fight or flight instinct, if there cannot be no harm, I think you're an idiot if you start fighting. Like it's simple.
No,
it's very simple for me.
Yeah.
You're asking for trouble.
No,
You're
I
asking for
think
trouble,
what you
right?
make sense. Like, I understand your
And it's
perspective.
less romantic,
Yeah.
but it's more pragmatic. It's like, man, like, why would you waste you want to really gamble your life on a chance that maybe they are not playing you and they are presenting you the full story, and they being the government. I don't think so. I don't trust it.
No, I agree with you on that. Like, when you factor in the fact that the government's corrupt.
Do you trust the government?
Yeah, I don't. Like, hey, okay, do you trust the government after COVID?
Man, no. Like, I mean, I didn't trust it before, but that definitely affirmed my confirmation to not trust it more, right? Like, yeah, I think definitely you have to be very cautious who you trust and what extent you go with, and just like really be open-minded about your life choices, right? And yeah, I mean, I feel for all these soldiers and all this, like this special military, right? Like those are very hardworking people, right?
Oh, for sure. Like,
and I do have a lot of friends in Greece who were going that route, but I'm like, in the end, you're just like a pawn in the game, and whose game are you playing with? and you are gambling your life.
It's not your game. I'll tell you that. It's not your
You are
game.
gambling your life that they are right and they are serving you, but they're not serving you. They are serving their interest.
And I'll tell you one thing. My father was in the military, and he was 100% pro supporting the military and families and like this kind of thing. But when he would look at conflicts that the U.S. was involved in, right? Like he's like, no man, like
Hell no.
no. He's like Andy's son, like don't go to war, like and it's not because the military itself. It's because the decision.
Directors.
It's the directors.
It's almost like a
Yes.
business. I see
Yes.
it every day in my
Yes.
in my business. Like I work over at Fortune 500, right? And I see how the decisions are made, and it's not so much different than any other like in a politics kind of game where there is like top-down decisions, there is bottom-up
Yes.
decisions, and there is justified decisions that are decisions the leaders made, and leaders are just like human beings like us, right? So
Yes.
so a human being can always be wrong because he's a human.
That's true.
And
That's true.
so they are humans, right? So I think, yeah, like if you're willing to gamble your own inner being on your own existence, on a decision of somebody, you better be careful of what decision that is.
I agree on that.
Or
I agree.
are you sure
Yeah.
that you have the full data? I'm very crazy about this stuff. Like I never
Yes.
trust that easy.
And for my father, it was even more than that, because what you're saying is very true. But my father would get upset when like the military wouldn't back supporting other military members. You know, like for instance, like there's like a lot of conflicts like the U.S. has been involved in, where like the U.S. sends in soldiers to like do some tactical thing or like this thing, and they get in trouble. And then the U.S. is like, oh, you're on your own. Like this was your decision. And so my father really disagreed with that, you know, which was like basically letting your people out to die. You know, like
Yeah, and that's what you chose.
yeah.
You chose to be, you know, in a sad way. You chose to be in the mercy of that decision, which, you know, in the end they were not on your side, unfortunately, as you thought they were. So you
No,
were
yeah.
brainwashed to believe that.
It's
And there was a lot of like talk about, like I've seen a lot of like even on the YouTube, like some people like, oh, like why did you send me to war to fight on a war that were not even like any weapons or anything like this? Like why do you do that? Well, the answer is clear: because of special interest. They wanted to get the oil, get the
Oh, for
economy, get, you know, do their own agenda, but nothing about like homeland security and all this kind of marketing.
no, I agree
marketing
on that.
BS. That's what I call it,
no,
marketing BS.
I agree on that. You're right. It's,
Yeah, I do think that, but yeah, I mean, obviously everyone can challenge that and can say, oh no, like this is not the case. They, you know, they had this kind of piece of information and it's good to fight. And, you know, definitely, you know, you are free to do whatever you want, but I do want to say, like, think twice if you want to gamble your life over somebody else's decision.
I think that's true. Like I don't have any other response to that. Like,
Come on, man. Like, yeah, don't do that. Just don't do that, please. And, you know, you were in Ukraine. If I was in Ukraine and I was a citizen, software engineer working in Ukraine, and somebody attacked my place, that's fucking tough. You know, like, yeah, I mean, what would I do? I wouldn't fight. I tell you that. I would run. Because like, are you going to fight a war that there is like 15 times better army, I guess, or 15 times more people coming to attack you? Would you stay there? I mean, I mean, all kudos to the guy who stayed there. I think they're very brave, but in my opinion, I wouldn't do it.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not there. What I would do, but
Maybe you would fight, and knowing you, I think you are a little bit of like, you know, like kind of like, fuck, I want to fight, you know.
me, it would depend though. Like I wouldn't fight for anyone that I didn't believe in, and when I mean believe in, I mean like one that they like when you have someone in your job or like a leader, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference between, I'm sure you've experienced this, working for someone who like you realize is full of shit, versus working with someone you're like, oh, like I actually understand their mentality. I believe their decision making. Like you understand their process. So I would have to believe in that for one. And then I would also just have to believe it was the best decision for me and my family, if that makes sense. But like I'm a person, like if I'm there's bosses that you've worked for, right? And there's no way in hell like you'd be like, I'll go to war with this guy. Like I'll let this guy lead me. No way. Like I'm that guy. I'm like, no way.
I do like people who are, they can put the money where the mouth is.
Yes.
So if you want to lead by example and you want to claim something and lead by it, I will be most likely going to be happy to help out and assist. But I don't like BS. So like if someone tells me one thing and then doesn't really back it up with facts or data, I get suspicious very easily, right? Like if someone talks and doesn't do it, then that means it's almost like a red flag, right? Like, why
agree.
are you saying something you're not doing? So, yeah, you're right. I think it all depends on the lead. It's not so much different than our job, right? You have all this tech lead that just talks and doesn't do it, right? Did you have those?
Mene, stop describing yourself.
Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I mean,
Shots
have
fired.
I been slacking lately? Maybe. I don't know. Sorry, manager. Sorry, but I think no. But I do think like like if you want to be a good leader,
yes,
I think you have to lead by example.
I agree, and I'm gonna say one thing, which is in every job, every person, when you have things going on, sometimes you take a slightly step back. Like even at Elsevier, like I love Elsevier, the company that I used to work for, and I worked hard. But there was times I took a step back and work on you. And right now, you're moving to Toronto, bro, for your family. So like it can naturally, like you might, like you're saying slack, but it might be just be taking a step back and saying, hey, like for the next month or two, I need to focus on myself to, align where I'm going, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we're doing a critical like actually we are in the midst of like migrating that, right? So I'm taking just 2 days off to just finish that kind of like, upgrade or move.
So you said take 2 days off?
I just take 2 days off for the move. I'm going back.
Okay.
Right?
I got you.
But by the way, after I complete that migration, I definitely like the approach because like that is like it's been a big
Which approach? Project. You said I like the approach.
I like the approach of taking a step back.
Okay, I got you.
Especially at my company, we had like a big freaking layoff. Like, a lot of smart
Half your team.
Half of my team is gone.
When's their last day?
Last Friday.
Oh,
it's done. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they are very smart. They'll find an exciting opportunity. But what I will say is that one thing, like I was talking to a team member who was impacted, and one thing he regretted was like not taking time off. So I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Hey, I tell you one thing. My 3 days a week.
Are paying off.
Oh, they're paying off.
Can I go to the washroom really quick?
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah, bro. Yeah. Let's just stop. I think
the microphone is amazing.
The microphone is great.
It is really good. Bro, hey, you have to put at least the same. Bro, at least the same.
There, bro. That is.
All right.
Dude, that's half the bottle, bro.
Hey, that's a good shit.
All right, hold on. Before I cheers, we'll cheers on camera.
We cheers on camera?
Cheers, my friend. Last one.
Yeah.
Last one
cheers,
third.
Everyone.
Cheers to the people who make this possible. I'm hoping, bro, that this will be my full-time job at one point.
You like it?
Okay. I do enjoy doing the podcast. I like talking to people. When I say my full-time job, I necessarily don't mean podcasting itself is entirely my full-time job, because to me, your full-time job is like what you're putting your most effort into, right? So like if I have other podcasts plus other things, you know. But,
Yeah, I think overall it's I mean it's very interesting. I mean, this is the first I was doing some sort of a only on podcast, like 3-minute podcast. And I can definitely tell you, like, from as a just a participant, it's very interesting that you take me back in these memories, and also unlock my opinion in some matters. Like, you know, I think it's a very good talk, and hopefully someone takes something good out of it, right? And you know, I think the overall purpose of this is like to make someone think, make the audience, take some key learnings, or make the best out of it.
I agree on that. From like my perspective, one thing I'm trying to use the podcast for is for my own personal learning, but also share what I've learned from other people with people.
Right.
Because one of the most unexpected things that I did when I moved to Vancouver was learning from all the different cultures. Right. Like when I deal with Persians, or when I deal with people from Greece or Mexico or whatever, right? You get these different perspectives on how things should be, or like social norms, or just even political events or history. And getting a different perspective on that has been highly educational.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Vancouver, say what you want to say, has a lot of bad things, but the diversity here is unmatched. Like, I've been in San Francisco, I've been in Austin. There is no place like Vancouver that you can match that, like energy. And I know we focused on a lot of problems, but
yes,
there's also a lot of amazing things about this place. Like, I think by far is the best place I've lived personally, like by miles away. In terms of city.
From like my perspective, in terms of in the summer, when it comes to the environment, like when I mean environment, like the weather and stuff,
right?
The mountains, the sea, the city, that is 100% by far.
Yeah.
I would say if I go back and I account for my family, or growing up, like that was by far there, right? In Ohio, it was just that family culture life, right? For sure.
Yeah. Do you miss that?
I do. I definitely miss the people I used to have in my life who are no longer with us. Like, that's what I miss the most.
Your father, I guess?
My father.
For sure.
100%. My sister.
Yeah.
My grandma, my grandpa, my dad's sister and brother. They were all lost in a very short, condensed time.
Damn, it hits you, right?
Oh, it does. It does.
It's like, it's boom.
It's boom.
Happens
yes.
Like,
and for me,
so fast.
It happened so fast, and it happened repeatedly, like
one after the other.
I remember seeing my father, and I watched his perspective change.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. But also, like, just seeing that shift in a person, right? Like, when, because for me, I saw him in like 5-6 years. He lost his sister, brother, and mother. He lost his biological father, 20 years earlier.
Wow.
So, like, watching him go through that, and his daughter.
Damn, I don't want to think about that. Like, one thing I'll tell you is, like, you back in the first stage of the podcast, you said, yes, I watched you change when you had my son. When I had my son.
Oh, I did. Right. And so like, that's a good thing. Like, when I saw that, it was a good change for you.
It definitely changed you. And I think, like, once an event and such a unhappy event happens in your life, I don't want to imagine how you feel. Definitely it's a tragedy. Because you're not supposed to die before or after your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if that's a worse punishment, and in Greek mythology, it's even like the worst punishment is seeing your kid die, right? That is like horrendous. Like nobody would ever comprehend that, right? Like, yeah, it's a big freaking pain that it happens, and it's so sad. But like humans are very strong. Like you can overcome that. It's always gonna be there. I think that it's such a pain. I wish nobody like that pain. I don't know that pain. I definitely sometimes you cannot prepare for that, right? But you see humans like, I don't know, like even Biden. Biden had the one kid,
Yeah.
right? And you see all these people, and somehow they are functioning, and that's very admirable, right? Like, yeah, it happens, but your life, whether you like it or not, is going on. So you better make the best out of it, and you have to say, well, that's it. That's what that's what the cards are giving me, and you just have to go on. And yeah, there is no option really, but to continue.
There are other options, but I don't think they're good options. And all the options,
Viable options.
yeah, all the options, they have their inherent problems. Like I remember, like just seeing my dad, like and my mom, and like just seeing them broken. That's something.
I mean, how can you be anything else but
Yes.
completely eradicated?
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't know that feeling. I don't want to. I don't want to know that feeling. Like, that's an insane feeling. Like, basically, I mean, knowing, like, it's crazy, man. Like, you put everything on your kids. I'll tell you, as a parent, I know you're not a father.
I'm not a parent.
Well, as we know, because you never know in this world. But, as we know,
Thanks for your confidence in that, Mene. I appreciate that, my friend.
No, I mean that trip back in Las Vegas, you never know.
But,
no, but as far as we know, you don't know the father. But I'll tell you, like, you invest a lot in your kids, and you make a lot of sacrifices, and everyone says that. Every parent will say that. So, watching that plant go away, I don't know if you can comprehend that.
No,
you lose it.
Like
You lose it.
Even me, I can't necessarily comprehend what my parents went through, but as an observer, I could just see devastation.
I mean, it's devastation for all the family, including you.
Yeah.
You see
for
your
sure.
sister.
Yeah, for sure.
God, like that's like, I had my my cousin just die as well. My Chris, my cousin, right? So I definitely was in pain on that. I actually, he's still with me, right? Like you still, those loved relatives always stay with you in your heart, right? But it's very hard sometimes. Like, I don't know if you have that feeling, like it's almost like they are always with you. Like it's like it didn't happen. Do you have that feeling? Like, well, it's not the rejection, but it's like kind of like, it's like almost like they are leaving, but they are in a different city or something, and you never see them.
I know what you mean. Like, so I've experienced that feeling, kind of, when you feel this person's still a part of you.
Yeah.
But I'll describe two scenarios that I've had. The first scenario is, I remember being in the car with my mom and my dad.
Right.
And then we're driving home. And then I remember being excited because, I'm going to go home and see my sister because I'm with my parents.
Oh, shit.
But then you realize when you get home, like, that.
You had that feeling.
I had that feeling, like, that, like.
I want to cry right now.
Like that was a horrible feeling to be sitting in the car and then to realize, like, no, that's not going to happen.
Like, as a kid, you actually said, like, you were, what, 15, 14?
At the time, I was like maybe 17, 18.
And you basically, your mind sleeps and tells you,
Yeah.
I'm going home. I'm going to find my sister.
Yes.
Correct me, is it, what was her name?
Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. I remember Wi-Fi password.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Andy had the Wi-Fi password name. But you know, like that's crazy, man.
Yeah,
That's fucking
like
crazy.
and they
I didn't know a human mind can do that.
oh,
You
I
know?
didn't know either until it happened,
That's insane, man.
or like the worst too, it's like sometimes you dream about them and it's the same thing. Like you wake up and you realize that the dream was just a dream.
I had a bad dream when my cousin passed. Like I saw him like, you know, kind of like he was almost like droning,
Drowning,
and then
yeah.
he came back and then he drowned again, and then he never came up, and then I woke up from a nightmare. But I'm like, that was like, it happened like 2 days after he died, and I'm like, that cannot be coincidence.
No, 100%.
Like that's some next level, you know, communication. Like, you know what I mean? Like someone like I could see that he was in a bad spot. He tried to get out of it, but he couldn't get out of it.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, that's crazy, man. Like it happens, you know, but it's part of our life. And you know, when we lose someone who we love, we just have no option but to continue.
It's a hard truth.
Yeah.
But it's a truth, like, because your option is die, stay in this state of just severe depression,
Yeah.
or figure out how to move on.
You can't stay in that state. But funny thing about death, a lot of philosophers have tried to finesse that, and they were very good, like very smart people, even doctors who were worked and saw thousands of people die, and every single one of them in the last part of their life, you are always scared of death. You are never too brave to face death. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like
some people say
I
you're
don't-
never too
yes.
scared. Maybe, I guess, maybe they want to go and fight in a war. That's instant. Death is instant there. But when you're old, I think you always experience that fear of something
don't know.
unknown
I don't
is
know,
going to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think as one, it's an unknown. I think that's like, in general, I think like when you watch a movie and you see something scary, right? It's as soon as you see the unknown, it's not scary anymore. But then the other thing that you mentioned is alone, right? Like if every time that you died, you knew that you were going with another person, right? Like that you would both experience the same thing. It wouldn't be nearly as scary.
You don't think so?
No, but I think that you have to do it alone. Like you know that your experience in death is your own. That's scary
That's
part.
deep,
Like,
man. Like,
yeah.
you know, like, yeah, that's why I decided to study software engineering. Like, software engineering doesn't make me think about that. You know, like, it's very pragmatic and kind of like dull, almost like you think about
I think it can be dull.
very dull. I mean, I love my job, but it, you know, in a grand scheme of things, is it something like a philosophy? Not really, but it's interesting.
Yes.
I love it, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just like, you know, like I didn't want to deal with that social aspect because eventually try to tackle these, you know, unknown problems. Very not even engineering. Like it's very hard to solve. Or like talk about death almost like philosophical problems, like those are very very tricky. It can make you almost crazy, you know?
So did you actually think about this? Like when I think about this, like in your personal life, did you think about being a philosopher or being something else where you had to deal with those emotional aspects of life?
Yeah, I love mathematics. Mathematics is no different than philosophy because like mathematics, like you basically just, you know, try to solve unsolved problems, like, you know, like Fermat theorem, and which, you know, like they try to prove it now. I think they find the theorem that they proved it for quite some time.
So why did you pick math or computer science, computers over software engineering over math?
Yeah, I think because I think that I know for a fact that it would drive me crazy. Mathematics will drive you crazy.
Why?
There is no other option. I mean, basically, basically there isn't, if you choose mathematics, like let's say you want to become a mathematician, there is no, field that can support you other than research. Like let's say if you want to go work at CERN or NASA, right? And you are becoming a researcher.
So it's financial is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's exactly financials, and it's also pragmatic. And in the end, you will be a madman. Like if you choose that field, I know like
You become a madman because
madman, madwoman. Anyone who chooses to study math and follow this as their life option, they are crazy.
And then why do you think they're crazy, or what you would become crazy?
It's you are choosing a life full of problems. And your whole purpose as a life is to solve problems.
Isn't that what we do as a developer? I'm playing devil's advocate here.
You do that, but in a lesser extent, and you are getting highly paid, right? And I mean, well compensated. And in mathematics, you don't do that, and you basically have this academia only path of like, okay, let's go and be academics.
Or if you worked for those few, like,
I mean, it's the volume is not the same.
No, I agree.
Right.
So
it's a beautiful field. I loved it, and I really seriously considered my first year of university. I took 8 courses of maths only because I was so passionate. And I remember my teacher, my professor said, nobody has ever done that. Like there is nobody in the university in the last 10 years that has done that, right? And I really love maths.
I didn't know that about you. So
I love mathematics.
So from your perspective, let me ask this question.
Tell me.
If you can make, with high confidence, you can make this, if the opportunity was as high as computers, would you, like, from both, your opportunity of getting a job and the salary, if it was as high as software engineering, would you have picked math?
Yeah, I think so. Like that's one thing I loved. Mm-hmm. It's about like, like just sitting down and like solving unknown problems. Like, let's solve this problem.
So
right?
did you like proofs, that kind of thing?
Yeah, proofs all the time. Like, how do you call them? I know the Greek words. Like, man, it's been a while. Ολοκληρώματα. Like, the S. The S.
Integrals.
Integrals, yeah. Like,
yes.
I mean, those are in the high school era, right?
Yes.
And then we were so like, one of the inspiration, like, okay, Fibonacci, and, you have like the other part of it, like the opposite of Holochromata, which is like...
discrete math?
Discrete math is the difference. The mathematical logic is another one that inspired me as well, which, you basically, how do you prove that something is true, right? Even in life, how do you prove that something is true? There is like, all these variations of like patterns that you can follow. For instance, like if you want to prove that something is true, you assume that it is false, and then you go backwards, and then you go all the way.
That's one way, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
There's multiple. Well, that's the most common way. Like, like that was the most common way to do that. Because you can't prove something is true if you assume it's true.
Yes.
So the easiest way to assume that something is true is to assume it's false and derive on a negative, on a non-true result.
Yes.
Right? So if you assume that 1 + 1 = 2, and you can't prove that, you can assume that 1 + 1 is not 2, and then go and prove that gets you to the wrong outcome.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the I guess best courses I got in my student life.
So that was like the proofs course, or like what would you call that? Like
it's called mathematical logic, and that was like a game changer for me. Like, I was like, wow, like
you're in. I'll tell you one thing.
I loved to just stay on the summer and just do math and be on my own world. Close my room and just be on my own. Boom.
Wow.
Yeah, I ask my brother. I mean, I love to do that.
I'll tell you one thing is I was kind of the opposite in the fact that like I could sit down, I have this math assignment to do, I have to do it. I'd sit down and I'd do it, but it's not like I wanted to do it. But
you did?
No, but like you wanted to do it. Like
I definitely wanted to do that. Yeah. But
I mean, I
I'm
did
glad
it.
I didn't because I honestly think that that's a recipe for a disaster.
I don't know. Like, so I understand what you're saying, which is that the probability of you being here or like here in math, isn't as high as, computer science.
Honestly, I think I would be a very good mathematician in my honest
Yeah.
assumption. But would I be sane? Would I be talking to you? Or would I have this EQ? Like
Yeah.
no chance. I think I would be extremely different person.
Maybe. I can definitely
At least in
see
software
your-
engineering,
yeah.
you're kind of developing these interpersonal skills because it's a team game.
It's
not an individual game.
It depends on your
player?
Yeah. Like if you're an individual contributor,
after some years, you have to.
even
No chance you survive. in the
No.
industry,
So
right?
I won't say the guy's name out of respect for the guy, but there was this DBA database administrator.
Do you think it's a son?
Not a son. It's not a
kidding.
son.
A son is stellar.
This guy, we hired him like at 65. Like he was like 65 years old, 60 years old, something like this. And he had this crazy long story. But I remember he was a person that he just liked to stay in his lane. Like he was a person just like he was an insane hard worker.
Right.
But he was not a person that you would say, go design this. He was a person that you'd say, do this X, Y, and Z. And he was just, like nothing, like there are people, that's what they love to do.
Yeah, I advise against because definitely you can do that. But it's all a matter of progression. And yeah, maybe you're not meant for it, but you should try progressing. And if you can't, it's
Yes.
fine. Maybe that's what this person is all about. Like maybe they tried, they failed, they go back.
I don't know. Like every person's different. I don't know.
Yeah, but I do think that you should try to progress all the time. And doing one thing for the rest of your life is good. I think anyone can do it. I think the challenge is like, how do you grow yourself? And you try to get out of that comfort zone. That you try new things. Maybe you fail. Like we did fail for Facet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Maybe I'll fail my next one. Who knows? But at least I will try. And I have a good story to tell. Like, will you be proud of Facet? It failed, but you have a story to tell.
Hey, I remember doing is do you remember going like on a Friday night? Going on a Friday night, Mene. Go on a Friday night and introducing yourself like, oh, me and Mene, we're starting your own company.
I'll tell you, it's a very good pickup line.
It is that good.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, like
We own our own business.
that's
worth zero.
that founder pickup line is definitely very good.
We're a founder at a company called Facet.
Yeah, definitely works. But yeah, I mean, yeah, no regrets on that.
I'll tell you one thing though, bringing you back to mathematics. I did have a buddy who was on the other side, physics. And he said for the longest time, mathematicians were always ahead of physics folks, physicians. Is that what you call them? Physicians? Like what do you call
I don't know.
scientist?
I don't know because
Physician?
physician is not a physician.
No,
because
yeah.
physician is the
So
healthcare provider.
Well, yeah. Whatever you call that dude, that scientist, physics. He said what's different now. It's physics has progressed so fast in the last 30 years that now physics people are asking math people the solution to the equation, and they're like, we don't know. We haven't seen this before. But before physics people like we prove this, and the math guys are like, oh yeah, like we've always known this. This is E equals MC squared. But now the math guys are like, dude, your guys are in experimental physics now. That we don't have the equations or the math to describe what you're seeing.
I do want to say something about physics people. They're extremely out of the box thinkers. I could not comprehend physics. I'm not good at physics, but every time I talk to a physics person, for some reason they would always tell me something that were completely outside of the box. And I always have the very high admiration. I had the luck to work with a lot of people coming from physics. I have not worked in the games industry, but I know a lot of gaming industry comes from the physics, like developers. That background is very amazing. But I will say, like, yeah, they are, like the way they think, something
Yes.
like the way they think is completely different from the world.
Oh, it is.
And,
It is.
and it's like, it is very interesting. I know Elon Musk has that background.
I don't know on him.
He's coming from physics.
But what I will tell you is, I think now my brain would be much better at physics than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because I've adapted that part. Because one realization in physics that you have to do is sometimes you just have to accept things for the way they are. Like they'll describe some weird thing. They're like, this is what the math says, and like this weird thing is true. And like you're like, what? Like your brain is like, that doesn't make any sense. Like these two atoms are far apart in the infant. Like
I do remember the final exam in physics. That was the last time I had done physics, but one of the last time there was this crazy problem that a ball would start falling, and they had this entropy, and then it was going here, which was a tantalum here, and then it would push the ball in there, and then you would have to compute the F, which is the strength, I would say. And that was like, I was like, oh, how the fuck can this happen? But at least the beauty is like, how can you compute that in this scenario? What is the actual parameters, right?
Yes.
And that's all about physics. And I mean, I think it takes a different mindset to do that. Like I couldn't get in that level. I think physics and mathematics are very different.
I think they're different, but they're also
correlated.
They're also correlated. And so I struggled in some courses in physics and in math from the abstract thinking that I think I've learned over the years. But like at the time, I remember I took one math course, and we were learning integrals and like all these things. And this instructor was very good at describing things abstractly, or like kind of how they worked. For instance, when he said, if you wanted to take the area of a circle, like how could you do this? You could divide it. If you wanted to do it in a discrete way, right? Like you take a circle and you could divide it in 4, and then you can make triangles, and then that extra area on the side, you're missing that. So if you divide it by 4, it's a rough estimate. But now if you do that by 8 or 16, or like those small sections in the corner, they get smaller and smaller. And then one day he was describing telescoping series, right? And then he was like, this formula basically is like a telescoping series, and that all these sections in the middle can collapse. And then he starts jumping in the room, and he's like, it's almost like if you can, like, because the telescope's way up here. And he's like, it's almost like if you jump, and he starts jumping, like you can just see through the telescope. And I saw that same thing in physics. Anyway, short story, I dropped out of that class because I couldn't understand that when it came to the actual material of the prop. He was teaching this way, of these very abstract ways. And then he'd give you a homework assignment. And like, now, dude, like, I was gone, right? I dropped out of the class. I picked up another class from a different professor who just described everything very like, here's the problem, here's what you do, very just A, B, C,
structural,
D. Very structural. I did very well in like the exact same course, just different instructors. But the first instructors, I think those are your more eccentric, the visionaries. Those are the guys like doing the actual like...
Man, you're so right. Like I remember my first paradigm status shift instructor. Shout out Dimitrios Dirmilis, that's his name. Vasilios Dirmilis. He was a mathematician at my after school. Mm-hmm. And the guy was such a amazing like role model in all the wrong ways. So I'll tell you one story. So I was really not a good student up until 16-year-old. Like I was never good at class. Actually, I remember my parents had a conversation with my teachers. A single teacher said maybe Menelaos should definitely consider a technical school rather than, because I don't think he is very good at it. And actually, judging from the data, I wasn't very good at it. But I was very confident in my abilities. I was always said, it's very easy for me to study. I just don't want to study. But people think, okay, this guy's bullshitter.
Yes.
He's just not smart. So I remember this guy teach the Vasilis Milis. He enters a class, right? And he's smoking. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, you guys don't smoke? What? Like, you should definitely smoke. I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's crazy, right? Mathematician. And then the second class comes in and he's like, yeah, so on Thursdays, or at least one day, you should never sleep. You should solve problems. So I'm like,
All night long?
yeah. You're like, what? And he's like, what? Yeah, definitely. If you're passionate, you don't sleep. You solve problems. And this guy, he was such a big idol to me that I'm like, I love this craziness. I love it. Like, I want to do that. And he was an inspiration. I mean,
was this a math guy?
He was a math guy.
Okay.
I think he was my inspiration. I think that's why I changed my course to be loving math. I actually didn't care about math, but I like actually this guy. He was like such a role model. Like what I liked about him is like really like the passion. Like he was passionate. You could see in his eyes. He loved solving math, and he would enter the class and he would tell you something so outrageous. Like he was entering smoking in the class and he was like, you should definitely smoke.
You should definitely smoke.
That's one thing that you can do in Greece and not get paged from parents. If you are in North America, that wouldn't fly. But one thing that he'd say, like, on Thursday, you choose a day. You don't sleep that day. You go straight to school. But you've worked to solve the math. And so I did that for 9 months. I stayed one day every week at night. I would solve math problems. And actually, I went from a very bad student that professors genuinely said that this guy doesn't cut it.
Yes.
To one of the best students in the region of Athens. So I think it's all relative. And I do think that, whatever you put in your mind into it, you'll succeed, right?
Dude, your brother told me this. Like he's like when some age 16, 17, he's like, Mene just stayed in his room and studied. Like that's all he did. He's like, no, I don't want to eat dinner. Bye. You would just...
Well, I'm determined. And you saw it with Facet. I mean,
yes.
I'm determined. Sometimes it can be very bad for me because I believe in maybe some wrong ideas. So it doesn't matter. Like I commit, right? Committing is good when you are committing in, like, I think mathematics, back in my life, I think I love that aspect. But, when you commit on an idea that doesn't really cut it, and entrepreneurship is all about committing, but also committing on the good ideas. So you have to be flexible, right?
I agree 100% on being flexible, but there's also something to be said of like, one of the things that made me successful as a developer is I would get an idea. So I would start something brand new. Whatever the brand new thing is, it doesn't matter what it is. I would look at the brand new thing and brand new for me, right? And so I would like, okay, I inherited this project and it has X, Y, and Z. But what is the most optimal solution, though the most like elegant way for me to solve this problem, both in terms of how much compute time, the performance of it, how much time it's going to take. For me, the low level was how much time it would take me to do it because I didn't care about that. But what is the most elegant solution, right? I was like, okay, the most elegant solution is X, Y, and Z. And then I would spend all my time working on the most elegant solution.
Yeah.
And then I might spend a week on like this very small aspect. And then I could be like, well, that's not going to work. I'll sacrifice in this regard. And because we can't do this, and I spent a week on this thing, we'll reduce to this very small alternative that I believe is less elegant for whatever reason. But we do this less elegant thing. But there's something to be said when you do that consistently. And then as a result, you have this thing that's like really, really elegant.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Do you believe you're a good engineer?
For sure.
Exactly. I think you so. Everyone who has worked with you think of that, right? So I'm a little bit surprised that you decide to take a step. You know,
What do you mean
like,
take a step?
take a step back. Like don't commit full time. You know what I mean?
Oh,
because
okay.
you're so good at it.
Yes, but I'm not passionate about it. Like from like my
True, right? Like, you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
you don't want to like just like overcommit on something
Exactly.
you're passionate about. Right?
Yeah, like it's like I'm not like at the end of the day, like was I passionate about doing those things? The answer is no. Like
And it's very interesting that, you have to be pragmatic, right? Like, if you're not passionate, you have to say, like, I know other people that try to say,
Yes.
I'm passionate, and, they don't commit really. So,
Yes.
like, I think it's important to know yourself. But one thing I would say, like, I worked with you in multiple occasions. Like, I was blown away by your intelligence. Like, I think like the way you think, I think you break down the problems in such a good way, and you're such a technically versed. Like, I think you don't like it. I think you like problem solving. You don't like coding, and
yes.
but you're good at it.
Yeah. That's the odd thing. Yeah.
The funny thing is, like,
I
never
don't
seen
like
that.
coding.
I never seen that in a
Yeah.
country. Like, I always see someone not good at it, but works hard.
Yes.
I see the other one. Like, you are the other one. Like, you're like, you're lazy, kind of like, I'm not motivated.
Yeah.
But by the way, if I put 1-2 hours, I can actually come with the most optimal solution. And that's insane for you. Like, I'll tell you that. Like, I never seen that. I never
Okay.
seen that kind of a characteristic in a developer. It's very rare to see that. Bill
yeah.
Gates said that, the best engineers are your style.
Really?
Yeah. He said, like, the best engineers are lazy engineers. Engineers that don't like their job. So they find their best way, the most lazy way to solve that. And, I think that he's true.
I am definitely that way. Like again, like my threshold is excellence. So like when I'm writing code,
I remember Facet.
Yeah.
By the way, it's open source, but
Yeah.
the backend is a masterpiece. Like, you can't just decline that. Like, you were putting observers via annotations in the code, and then you were basically listening to certain events. Actually, my buddy Liam, shout out to Liam Zvednek, he
Yeah.
started a company. You remember Pyrus.com? Pyrus, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can post a link here, but I think it has a lot of similarity with Facet.
Okay.
And that guy, like, I talked to him the other day, but it is. I didn't tell him he has similarities about Facet, but the way he's implemented the system was amazing. Like, I really love your approach, right, on listening and declining that heavy code.
Yeah, dude.
Management, right?
It was like, I remember now. I was reading dynamically the spring annotations.
That's insane. I
So
think there's,
to
honestly,
determine the method type.
I think honestly there is a product for that. I don't know if it's feature flags, but I do think that there is a product that can use that technology, because that technology is fucking dope.
You know what I think, though, more I think about it, is like I think feature flags just need to be a native part of the language. Like if it,
You know what? I really love
Yeah.
that, because every time I use that, I feel it's such a hassle to go this freaking optimized dashboard and just create that and then coordinate that.
Yeah.
What about infrastructure as code feature flags? Like, that's
Yeah.
one nobody talks about, because I think it's a kind of like old fashioned and kind of like,
No.
who cares about disrupting the space, right? But if you think about Optimizely and Launch Darkly and all this, what was the other one? Like Codesmith? Yeah.
No, launch darkly and optimizely.
Yeah. So those guys or vendors are screaming for disruption. But the problem is, like, I think that space is kind of like too saturated. And, the value proposition of like, oh, like, I'm going to give you better code, I think it has declined even more with AI, because now code is not intellectual property anymore. It's so easy to generate it. Back in the days, you used to say this system has 100,000 lines of code.
Yes.
Good luck trying to replicate it. Nowadays,
Yes.
I can have baby AGI generated in like 3 days.
I'll tell you one thing. I had a professor who used to say, code, software is the only thing that can be copyrighted and patented. It's the only thing. Nothing else can you actually create a patent for it and copyright the.
I think the value of code is declining because how easy it can be generated nowadays with AGI, right? But I like what Amar says. Like, I think eventually code intellectual property will declining. Data, on the other hand, is going to go up. So people want data. They don't want code. And that's very true. Like, you want data.
Yeah, so
you
like
can commoditize data.
So here's like my perspective on all this, right? Is I come at from like a business angle, which
Right.
so do you remember me saying before? Of course you do, because you'd be an idiot if you didn't. But me saying like I look for the most optimal solution, right? And so for some like my perspective now, if I have a company and I write software, is the most optimal solution me to hire an engineering team to write my software for me. And then I spend 6 months. So if I want 10 engineers, let's just say they're each paid $100,000.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is this, let's say you're running a supermarket.
Yeah.
Is this the most optimal thing to hire 10 cashiers?
Yes. No. But
you hire them.
but for now.
Right. But I mean, the automated cashier system or self-checkout has been around for 5 years.
Yes.
At least 5 years, for sure. Like,
Oh, it's probably more like 10. It's more like 10.
Yeah. And we still haven't automated that.
But
Why?
It's slowly starting to shift.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think there is some intricacies. Definitely. The way I see AGI is like it definitely will help with some tasks of a software engineer. That will help our job. Will we automate software engineering? Maybe, at some point.
Yes.
When? I think it's too early.
No, I disagree with you.
I use it every day.
I disagree with you on that.
You disagree?
So I think so here's what I believe. 90% of engineering teams in the next 5-10 years can be done by AI. So I think in general, there's a very small percentage of developers who are writing
That is depressing.
groundbreaking code. Seriously, think about it in realtor.
No names.
Yeah.
No names.
Yeah,
I can't talk about realtor.
Yeah. Okay, but you can talk about realtor. Okay, so we'll talk about realtor, but no names with inside realtor. How many people can you think that actually are computing or contributing code that is how I'll say this, worth the patent?
Like I would think like in terms of statistics.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number because I don't know the numbers, but in terms of global companies, I would say like the number is like looking like less than 5% of the coders.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
Less than 5%.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's more than 5%. Like meaning like 5% of the contributing commits could like 95% of the commits could have been done
automated
easily on an AI because they are not groundbreaking.
Yes.
However, what I'm saying is like AGI is not there yet.
It's not. I agree.
Will
I
it
agree.
be in 5 years? Maybe. Hopefully, like because I think we have to move on from this kind of like cubicle, kind of like as a software engineer, I'm staying all night and doing nothing and just coding, right? I think it's not good for humans. Like humans were not meant for that. You know what I mean?
You're right.
You do it because your motivation or your circumstances, maybe your craziness. But I do think that humans on a vast majority were not supposed to stay on their own.
So I actually had I don't remember so this is when I worked at Ellen
If I
Elsevier.
keep on drinking this, I'm gonna start saying the
It's
truth.
fine.
Right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to.
Hey. But here's one thing I will say is when I worked at Elsevier or LN, I'm not sure if it was a product manager. It was an outside consultant that was coming in. I'm not sure if it was technical or if it was more on the project side.
Right.
But they said what humans are phenomenal at, what we're great at, is solving problems.
Right.
What we suck at, what we're terrible at, is doing the same thing over and over again in a very identical way. So like
Routine.
routine. So like he was saying in software, humans are terrible at like all the things that we think a general like automation can do for you, like spinning up a server manually and like all that kind of stuff.
I hate that shit.
Yeah.
I had a deployment today that I was heavily manually and I failed miserably, and a lot of things can go wrong. Like you can never get it right if you're talking about manual five manual steps or 10 manual steps, right?
Dude,
you do it once, maybe you'd get it right. Like, what is the chance that you follow 10 steps correct? Actually, we had a big tragedy in Greece.
do you? I'm going to interrupt you.
Sorry.
I'm going to interrupt you. Do you know what the number? Like my definition of a bad deployment is?
Manual.
One manual step. Like as soon as you have
Click.
one
Click.
manual, like okay, that's
Yeah.
and go on.
That's why I love him as a DevOps. But yeah, like I think we had one big tragedy in Greece where like a lot of people died from through trains because due to a manual human error.
Yes.
So, they definitely you're preaching to the choir here. Like, automation is a way to go, and I would love to see more of the AGI stuff. But on the other hand, as I use it, I'm like, I'm not convinced.
Dude,
I'm
it's
not
not
convinced.
there. It's not there.
I'm like, when I use it, I'm going full zombie mode. I don't think I'm like, do me that, right? But I have to learn how to go human mode and say, okay, you're bullshitting me. I disagree with what you say, and let's try to solve it. Like, let's do it the manual way. I want to solve this problem. AGI says, or like ChatGPT said, this is not possible. It's wrong. Sometimes it's wrong.
Oh, it is.
Right now. I'm not saying in 5 years, maybe it's not wrong.
No. But
right now it's wrong,
Here's what I will tell you.
Yeah.
It's never going to be 100% right. Humans are never 100%
but
right.
This is a problem. Because if it's not 100% right, you can't trust it.
Okay, let me ask this question. So
Yeah.
I'm asking to you.
Right.
Is a human ever 100% right?
Never.
Is an engineering team 100% right?
Never.
So compare never 100% right with AI that's never 100% right.
Yeah, AGI wins.
Yeah, so
it's totally better than a human. Why? Because if I'm emotional one day, let's say I fought with my manager, I fought with my girlfriend, my Ronaldine, or whoever, my
Oh, Mene, you fight with Ronaldin?
yeah, well, not too many times.
Oh,
Well, lately not too many times.
Rona,
I'm gonna cut that.
Rona, we
I'm gonna
love
cut
you.
that.
We love you.
I'll cut that because I'm gonna get in trouble.
all couples fight.
No.
All couples fight.
Yeah.
Me and Mike. Hey,
I'll cut that.
But
I'm gonna
believe-
get in trouble.
but believe it or not, Mene, me and my ex-wife, we fought.
Well, that's why he's your ex. I'm gonna cut that. Definitely cut. Anyways, where were we at? Like, okay, so we're talking about AGI, and it's like I'm good, but we're talking about AGI, right? Is the problem with AGI is really that when it becomes like 99% truthy, you trust it. When are you going to disagree with it? When are you going to question it? This is a danger for me. Because if it's 99% right, it's great. It works most of the times. But when are you going to unplug yourself into questioning what it says? To me, that is the danger of a human. most of the people will just accept what it says, and nobody will question it.
So
Like, I do
yeah.
think that it is actually very interesting how you decline that opinion.
So I'll give you an example.
Right.
And I don't have an answer to your question, but my ethics professor, my computer ethics professor, posed the same question that you just posed, but he gave an actual concrete example. And so this was in I want to say like 70s, where the US made software that would give you radiation, right? And so they changed, there was a company that made a radiation machine to treat cancer.
Right.
Or like that would give you a very localized radiation. But in like the 70s, they changed from hardware safeguards to mechanical safeguards. Or no, from hardware mechanical safeguards to software safeguards. So like these people would go in, and like there's people who go in to get like a radiation on like let's say somewhere in your body,
Right.
right? The machine would screw up because the hardware safe checks were removed and replaced with software, and the software guy messed them up. And then people would, like doctors, would say like their arm was turning black, and like you know they had radiation poisoning.
Oh, damn.
Okay,
That's sad.
because the machine was giving too much radiation in a very, very, very localized scenario. But the doctors said, wait, this machine, it's impossible for it to give you radiation poisoning because it's perfect. And it was in the 70s, right? Like this was back in the day when if the computer told you 1 + 2 = 5,
You accept.
you accepted.
And that's
so
my
it's
biggest
very
worry.
Yeah.
My biggest worry, especially when I use ChatGPT 4 or whatever version comes up, I'm like, okay, I accept some things. When it tells me no, can I unplug and say you are bullshitting me? Because I have many occasions where I'm like, no, that cannot be impossible. So I do think that there is a fine line where, like, let's say you have this amazing machine that can compute a lot of great stuff, but it can fail. And some people don't realize that. So what people will do is like actually say, oh, ChatGPT told me that. It can be, it's my God, right? And that is a problem. Like it disables your critical thinking even as a contributor. Sometimes it's actually worse to use ChatGPT than use Google. I use it, and if you know how to use it, I think you can benefit from it 100%. I actually use it more than Google nowadays. But you have to be cautious about what you accept as an answer.
Yeah, like
right now.
I've definitely realized that on ChatGPT, sometimes it will just make stuff up. Like it will theorize, and it's not good.
It's a good model for not depth but breadth.
Mm-hmm.
It goes breadth. It goes
Yes.
level 2.
Yes.
Level 5 down deep. I don't know if you can specialize that.
You know,
Yet.
But what I've noticed is if you tell it it's wrong, like the more context that
You
you
give it.
can give,
Yeah.
it gets better. But it still messes up.
Well, the problem is like I think sometimes humans underserve themselves because of course you are coming to a conclusion that you're helping the AI to derive that outcome to justify your thoughts. But you already did the work. The problem is like, can AI do that work for you? Sometimes it does it very well for well-known problems. But in highly contextual problems, I think right now it suffers. And that is why I'm not threatened even by the AI. But the question is like, okay, you're not threatened now. Are you gonna be threatened in 3 years? Maybe, right? Maybe in 1 year,
Yes.
right? But I think
Yes.
right now it's a great product that I'm using, but I'm not very fully convinced about it.
So I'll tell you two things.
Yeah.
The first thing is I have perhaps a slightly different definition of intelligence than a lot of people.
Right.
And my definition of intelligence is two things. First, what's your capacity to learn? And then two, how quickly do you learn? I believe that's true intelligence. Like your capability to learn and how fast you can do it. And that's one thing in AI. We're still learning there, right? Definitely.
Yeah, I think I'm not an AI expert, but I think it has a lot of room to grow. But I would caution against, like everyone start quoting AI. Now you can share actually your conversation. I envision a lot of people try to like, oh, AI told me this and told me that, and no take question for an answer. I think that's problematic because Google at least in the 2.0 search, what I like the traditional search, it's kind of like
2.0.
well, I mean 1.0 even like basically you were searching, you were having data, you would analyze those data, and you were analyzing the source of truth. Versus AI has no references, it just gives you the answer. It's great if the answer is correct, but how is the answer deviated? It's generated really from this data that is trained from. So if the data is inaccurate, it can derive to a wrong answer, and that is a bigger problem. Like for me, like, and even if there is no data, there are some scalability issues. Like, okay, let's say if all the humanity starts using ChatGPT in, like, let's say now today, will we have any data generated in the next 3 years?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Unless you're, well, if you can reach to the point of not needing the data, well, that is godlike. Like basically you have a system that is dangerous, because if you can reach that state of a godlike, we are in trouble.
So I don't want to say godlike.
It is godlike,
but
if
no,
it doesn't need data to
okay.
generate the most optimal answer to any problem, I'm scared about humanity.
So
at that point.
I don't want to say godlike, but I want to say critically think. So like my definition of true AI is AI that can critically think, or in other words, AI that can interpret results from data. Right now, AI, like if you think about what it does, is it looks at 10 different variables, and it says, okay, we think these variables, most of the internet or most of the results say these 3 things out of the 10 are correct. So we'll pose that. But what AI doesn't have right now, that I think it will have soon, is the capability of reason. Like to me, that's true artificial intelligence, is the capability to reason.
You know what? I'm excited. Like I think it's gonna be great to see that system. But I'm on the other hand of the spectrum of a doubter. I'm not buying that Kool-Aid. I know like
Buying what Kool-Aid?
The AI Kool-Aid. Like I think it's a fantastic system. To me, it serves the purpose of advanced search, a constant time search, where you can search for a specific reason and you can get the answer. But if you go a step further of baby AGI, kind of like fully autonomous system, it's not there yet. But that being said, I'm excited. Will it be there in 5 years? I don't know. But I'm a little bit of a different angle. Like I'm like, I'm not fully convinced that this AI will be superior than human thinking.
Okay. Let
Maybe
me
you
ask,
need a
yeah.
hybrid. A hybrid.
Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
When would you trust AI for investing? Because that's where your money is.
I would never, ever trust AI for investing.
Never.
Because the moment AI knows the answer,
Yes.
the Mr. Market changes the algorithm. I mean, that's the basic function of Mr. Market is like most of the people will lose money, and some people will make money. Some people who make money will be the minority, and that's how Mr. Market works. I mean, Market Wizards, the book, it was very, very true. Like, it's a casino that most of the people will lose money. Some people will make money. Those people will be the minority. And that's how stock market works, right? So if there is an AGI system that figures out somehow to beat the market, you can't do that. The system will crash. It's a casino, right? Like you can't have a business that you are handing out money more than what you have. You go bankrupt.
I agree on this. Well, with that, my friend, any other thing you want to talk about?
Man, I think we've been talking like if I drink the other half of it, I think I'm gonna be here for
It's
for
like
the rest,
3 hours and 10
12
minutes,
hours.
20 minutes, something like this.
It's so enjoyable to talk to you. I can talk to you for an hour. Like I could go all day.
You know, when you told me this within like maybe 3 months of meeting you, we were at Adobe. Do you remember Adobe? Like it's a restaurant in not Davie, but Robson Street.
Which one?
Adobe. It's like in between like where I used to live and where you used to live in Jervis. Like
I don't remember that restaurant.
It's
Adobe?
ADO. We ate there once for breakfast. A long time ago.
Okay. I don't remember that.
When we ate there, you said the exact same thing. Andy, I like talking to you.
I definitely like talking to Andy. I think I could talk like 8 hours straight. No problem. We did that. So I hope you guys enjoyed.
Yes, I hope you enjoyed. Here's what I will say is for folks who don't know, Mene and I, the first time we hung out, we went to some yoga class and then we hang out till like 2 a.m. Okay?
I'm like, this is my type of guy.
We did that
It was an instant.
7 days in a row. Okay, 7 days in a row. Like we hung out the first day like 5, 6 hours.
Love at the first
Yes.
sight. Love at the first sight.
And with that, bro, cheers to you. To Menelaos.
Thank you. Namaste.
Yes. And namaste. And I truly hope that Toronto brings everything that you want and that it's terrific for you and Rona.
If it doesn't, next place, please. Thank you.
See you, folks. Bye-bye.
Boom.
Cheers, bro.
There we go.
Done.